Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Cabbage Head Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had DnD Quirk. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Since Izuku Midoriya was 4, he hasn't had the best life. On his birthday he found out that he would never get a quirk. They just did an x-ray and found out his pinky toes had 2 joints. They didn't do further testing, saying it wouldn't prove anything other than he's quirkless. On their way home, his father committed suicide once he found out Izuku was quirkless, and he didn't want his family to disown him. The next day at school, Izuku was withdrawn and his friend Katsuki, and Bakugo bugged him to tell him. When Katsuki found out, he started to bully the poor kid. Lies of quirklessness being contagious and laws stating quirkless can be used as punching bags. Izuku was beat up on a daily basis. This went on for so long Izuku gained a high pain tolerance, learned a ton, and gained a slight hate of quirks. He lasted 10 years of torture, abuse, and burns. Izuku's mom has been his only supportive person. Of course, Izuku does his best to help his mom by getting a job and doing a lot of the chores at home. Today was his first day off in a very long time. As he surfed the internet, he found an old subreddit. On this subreddit, they talked about a game called Dungeons and Dragons. He read stories and saw lots of awesome artwork. The stories range from so silly he couldn't breathe from laughing too hard to those so sad he would have cried if he had a tear left. The artwork was breathtaking as well. Worlds of many colors, different races and classes, and the magic they drew. After a while of surfing, he found the art and story of a character called Izuku the God. This character's story was about how a kid became a god after finding the lost relics of power which hide in plain sight. The art somewhat looked like him, but in an armor set that looked like it was made of emeralds and jade. As Izuku looked it over, he made a wish that would change his destiny forever. I wish I was like these awesome characters. As those words fell from his lips, the drawing of Izuku the God changed from frowning to smiling. Izuku rubbed his eyes some and looked again, only to suddenly be in a giant white room with the god standing in front of him. I will grant your wish, but you must train to learn all of my powers. For now I give you my base stats of all 20 seconds. Your strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are now maxed without boosting items. Izuku felt his body bulk up slightly and he felt much healthier. The god then smiled. No pain, you're truly pure of heart. I will give you 2 more powers. For your purity I give you ultimate spellcaster feat and artificer's envy. May you use these gifts well. Until we meet again, young god in training. Izuku was suddenly in his living room scaring his mom. She instantly noticed he was taller, more handsome, and something powerful was in him. She was about to ask when Izuku fainted, crushing the coffee table, which survived much more than a teenager falling on it. She called the hospital and had an ambulance take him there. A couple hours later, Izuku woke up and looked around confused. When he realized where he was, confusion filled his mind as the last thing he remembered was seeing his mom looking worried. He noticed a drink with his name on it just out of his reach. As a joke he said, "Mage hand, I summon you." He suddenly saw a ghostly hand form, give him his drink, and then vanish after giving him a thumbs up. In co-POV, I walked into my son's hospital room with some food for when he woke up. When I saw you was not only awake but drinking the water I left, I got a tad mad. How long have you been up? Also, I am upset you got out of that bed after you collapsed. Izuku just looked at me confused. I collapsed? Did I break anything? I showed him a picture of the table and he looked upset. I'm sorry, Mom, I didn't mean to break it. Also, I had an odd vision. With a sigh I hugged him. It's okay, hun, just quit working so much. I'm the parent, not you. Now what was the vision? He told me about the vision and I chuckled a bit. Well, someone with a teleportation quirk messed with you then. He just suddenly appeared in front of me before you collapsed. He thought a bit and looked for his phone. When he got it, he noticed his cup was warm and searched up something. Once he found what he was after, he said, "Ray of Frost, target cup, purpose, cool my drink." He held up the hand not holding his phone and a blast of frost came out of his hand. After a couple of seconds he drank his drink happier. Okay, so I do have powers. I thought I was seeing things. Dancing lights. Get me a doctor's attention please by leading them here as balls of light. I watched balls of light suddenly form and Izuku kinda danced in his hospital bed. Awesome. I don't need components for spells. I wonder what else I can do. The lights left and I was stunned. Those spells finally clicked. Wait, you're casting spells from DnD? He nodded and I pulled up a website I remembered from when I played it in high school. I pulled up a homebrew spell I knew would help us. He looked it over and looked at the flowers in the room. Gem transformation. Target flowers in the vase. We watched as they slowly transformed into gems. The doctor walked in and was batting at the lights. Boy, you could have just hit the call nurse button instead of having these balls of light harass me. We both apologized and said we realized why Izuku collapsed. He was surprised since late bloomers usually have already manifested. We give them the flowers and he takes them to be appraised by a jeweler. We leave and head home eating our food once we got there. That's when Izuku thought of something. Mom, make a spell for me right now. I want to try if I know it's homebrew, if I can still cast it. I sigh. Let's do the testing tomorrow, hun. We have the weekend off. I already called our respective bosses and they gave us time off. He nodded and I wrote him a simple one I called Student's Blessing. It will teach him everything about anything he wanted forever. He quickly used it and he smiled. It works. Tomorrow I will see if I can homebrew spells. Night, Mom. I love you. He mended the broken coffee table, then went to bed with me chuckling. My son is going to make a lot of people mad with his power. Izuku POV. I woke up the next morning and headed downstairs before Mom could. After deciding what breakfast would be, I created a new spell. Instant breakfast, bacon, eggs, waffles, toast, coffee, and apple juice. As I finished talking, Mom walked in and the food suddenly appeared on the table. She hugged me. Morning, my awesome son. Guessing you just made that spell. I nodded and we began to eat. After breakfast, the dishes suddenly vanished as if they never existed. That was cool. I didn't write that in, but very useful. I watched as it got added to the spell, as it had to be written down somewhere for it to work. Mom, what's an artificer in DnD? She explained they cast magic through machines, but since I can cast any spell that's not needed. Once she finished, I smirked. May I get even with the bullies at my school? She nodded and kissed my forehead. Sure, your father's blacksmith stuff is in the garage. Promise me you won't do anything dangerous. I nodded and quickly headed to the garage. After using Student's Blessing, I grabbed all I needed and fired up the forge. When it got hot enough, I created metal with transfiguration magic from some trash. With that all done, I smirk and get to work. I spent the day creating pieces of metal in an odd shape. Once I had roughly 1,000 pieces, I began preparing my magic. Pieces of metal molded by me, I imbue you with magic. You will become my first artificer creations. Take form, replicators. I watched as magic flowed out of my hand in the colors of the rainbows, with the pieces floating for a second before they became replicators that obey me. Tomorrow at school I will reveal these and have fun. I wonder how many I will scare. I spent the weekend making more and more of my replicator blocks so I could have a good few. After making at least 100 blocks, I decided to create a mother, queen replicator to make them for me. With some planning done, I created a good amount of replicator blocks and created a new spell. Replicator Queen, arise, form from the blocks I made. Become my familiar and army builder. Let us both make my dreams come true. After I finished saying the spell, I watched the blocks float and come together, creating Queen Replicator. She was the size of a small dog and the two previous replicators bowed to her. The bows made me smile. Repa and BU2 will collect the trash littering the ground outside in public trash cans. Be stealthy, don't want anyone to see you. I looked through a DnD handbook my mom gave me and quickly created 2 small bags of holding, which I hand to them. Who knew DnD had so many interesting items? I can probably create a version of this bag later. Put the trash in here, but do not overstuff them. They hold up to 500 pounds, not passing 64 cubic feet, and be saluted before rushing off to do their jobs. While they were gone, I tested the ability of the queen. I watched her climb walls, spit acid, and consume items to make more replicator blocks. She was almost perfect. The only problem is she tried to eat everything to replicate. I had to tell her multiple times to wait till the others returned to eat while I repaired the stuff she gnawed on. After a couple of hours, the duo returned running like their metal was melting. That's when I saw why they were running. Bakugo was trying to blast them and I was laughing. They stole his backpack that he threw at them when he saw them. Throw his bag at him and hide. They heard me and did just that. As he was blinded by his bag, they hopped into a nearby trash can and temporarily dismantled themselves to hide easier. He looked around for a bit, then gave up after blasting the trash can with his quirk. Once he was gone, NB returned and dumped out their haul. Half a ton of trash was then turned into a bunch of metal using magic, and Queen instantly started to dig in. By the time the pile was done, I literally had a giant army of replicators. It now went from a to a 7. I thought a bit and created a special bag of holding that can hold infinite replicator blocks. With KA7 turned off and in storage, I had the rest become a metal backpack for me to use tomorrow, as my last backpack was used to create all the bags of holding. The metal one made from the blocks did look a bit silly, but honestly I liked it. With the weekend over, I couldn't wait for school. I bet Bakugo gets a bit of deja vu when he sees them. The next morning I ate breakfast with Mom and she saw the backpack made of the blocks. She smiled, glad I upgraded from the burned bag that I've used for a couple of years. I did the dishes and rushed to school so I can be there early. Luckily, I was able to get into the classroom, avoiding Bakugo and his goon squad. As he walked by me to his desk, he kicked my backpack only to hurt his foot. Damn nerd, how many books are in that backpack? Got a library in there. I shook my head. Just the class stuff, Bakugo. The backpack is made of a stainless steel and vibranium blend. He laughed. Looks like tin to me. You'd only be able to get that if you stole it. I smirked when he tried to grab my bag only for it to move away. Bakugo was stunned for a little bit, as each time he reached for it, it would move away. When he stopped, it would return to where it was. His goons tried as well, only for similar results to happen to them. Class started and my replicator backpack gave me each book I needed when I needed them. By lunchtime, Bakugo is visibly fuming and his palms are crackling some. Before I could stand, he grabbed my shoulder. "What's with your bag, nerd?" I winced in pain as his explosions burned my shoulder. This triggered my replicators for a funny result. Well, funny for me, that is. They put my bag of holding and replicator block bag in my hands as they become their original forms. Goon Squad backed away quickly as they saw the hissing metal bugs form and protect me. Bakugo recognized them. "So you made the backpack thieves." I laughed and stood up. "You threw it at them and I guess they mistook your rip-off bag as trash." I start to head to the door when suddenly I heard a blast against metal behind me. What I saw made me smile more. Interesting, they formed a wall in less than a second. That's a new record. Anyways, lunchtime. I left with my replicators around me in a circle with 2 on the ceiling. Everyone avoided my replicators as Queen got onto my back and shoulder, taking my bags of holding back. I ate lunch alone and messed with my replicators. We tried many forms and I was easily able to use them as armor. With my testing done, I headed back inside with my replicators calmed down and had them become the bag again. Bakugo was growling and the teacher said they would do a job apprehension test, but everyone wanted to be a hero. Show of quirks except Bakugo. He says he will get into UA alone and the rest of us are extras. Seriously, does he think he is a main character in a manga or something? Then the teacher caused the best thing possible. He said I wanted to enter UA. Bakugo instantly tried to blast my head off. Of course, he failed hard. My replicators were already defending me and the Queen hissed at him angrily. "Bakugo, don't try again. Queen is starting to hate you and you just met her before lunch." Everyone was shocked as I glared at Bakugo. "What is this, sit nerd? You've been hiding your quirk from me." I began to laugh, sounding a bit crazy. "Nope, just a late bloomer and my quirk is yet to be named." I then saw something pop up next to me. It was a floating scroll with a replicator drawn on it and a note. "Quirk upgrade. Unlocked Replicator King. Unsettling laugh, race shift, and class shift." I read it and watched the scroll burn up. "Can I spit on him, your highness? I want to make him scream." I was stunned until I realized I understood it was Queen talking in clear English. "Don't spit. Don't need the nuclear Pomeranian getting madder. Plus your acid helps you turn metal into more of you guys." His face would be unrecognizable. Everyone quickly backed away except Bakugo. He just growled. What did that metal roach say? I then realized that I can understand them. They were still talking through clicks. "Queen wants to make you scream in pain, but I told her no. Also back off. I have a lot more replicators than just the ones you see here." He swung and I ducked easily, so predictable. While Queen was hissing, I noticed that one of my replicators had snuck over to a big window and opened it. The bell rang, signaling the end of school, and I chuckled. "You know what? You always tell me to take a swan dive off the roof. I'll just jump out the window." With the help of my replicators, I jumped out the window. As I fell, they became metal wings and I flew away laughing as Queen spoke. "That was interesting to see. You enjoying flying, your majesty?" After a bit, we landed near a bridge and all but Queen became a backpack again. "This power of mine is interesting. I think I will call it Replicator King so people will underestimate us." Queen agreed and suddenly stiffened, looking at a manhole cover. "Something is under that." It moved some as if to peek, then quickly closed. I smirked. "Come out, sewer dweller. Queen saw you move the manhole cover." Out came a slime villain. He groaned. "I was going to sneak attack you." "Oh well, you're my new host." Slime for brains tried to attack me, only for my pets to trap him. He was put into an airtight cage made with replicator blocks. That's when All Might showed up. Where did the villain go?" I pointed to the box and kicked it. This resulted in audible cursing from the slime. "My quirk is quite flexible." As he looked at a replicator block, he coughed up blood and started to steam. "Queen, block all exits. Reinforce cage." A flood of replicator blocks flew out of its bag and closed off the underpass. Even the manhole was reinforced. The steam stopped and I saw a sickly skeleton. "Don't tell anyone about this. I don't need people worrying." I walked over and popped my knuckles. "I will if you keep what I'm about to do a secret." Izuku POV. I gulped as Nezu asked me the dreaded question. "Why do your papers say Quirkless?" Before I could answer, a bright light suddenly appeared in the room and spoke. I gave him his powers. "You all can call me Izuku's guardian god." After seeing a few centuries of Quirkless losing heart and ending their lives, I found Izuku. His pure heart called for me and he wished for the ability to save others. I looked at the light. "You gave me my quirk. I thought I was just a late bloomer." The light chuckled. "No, I blessed you with it and I wish I did it sooner." Gotta admit though, replicator wing armor was fun to see. The light projected the scene of me jumping out the window and flying quickly out of view. My classmates looked partially sick as they looked for my body only to find nothing. Aizawa groaned. Midnight sighed. All Might chuckled, and Nezu fell over laughing. I think I let my emotions take the lead then. I wonder how they will react tomorrow. The light laughed. I'm curious as well. Anyways, you can find out. Also, I should explain something. I'm a god. There are thousands of gods throughout the multiverse, so be careful. The light then vanished. I look worried. I got the notice of a god. If one likes me, there might be one who hates me. After a bit, I told the four there about what I know about my quirk, and Midnight grabbed my shoulders. Can you make me stay beautiful until the day I die? I thought a bit and started to write a new spell. Once I was done, I popped my knuckles. This might hurt a bit. Also, you'll still need to live a healthy life. I just stopped aging, not anything else. Aphrodite's blessing, unaging beauty. I watched as pink smoke flew from my hands and surrounded Midnight for a couple of minutes before it ended, and I felt tired. All Might caught me as I began to fall down. Okay, 2 massive opus spells a day limit. Can someone call my mom or give me a ride home? Other than Midnight, I've seen you drive. Izuku laughed and said he would give me a lift. On the way home, he and I talked about cats and his life as a hero. Once we arrived, there were 2 cops at the house and Mom was crying. I ran over to her. Mom, what's wrong? She grabbed me and cried as I found out what's going on. Apparently, my classmates thought I died and vanished out of existence. I explained what happened and admitted I was emotionally drained when I pulled the stunt. Queen ordered the replicator wing armor to reappear on me, and the cops recognized the blocks. Oh, you're the sludge catcher. I saw you walk in with All Might and the giant spider cube made of those pieces. Are they tech or an aspect of your quirk? I scratched my head. Kinda both. I'm sorry for causing you guys more trouble. He laughed and left with his buddy saying, you show up tomorrow, make them think they are seeing a ghost. I'll update the school in the files. Mom dragged me inside and scolded me for going that far. We ate supper and I told her I got into UA. She was proud of me and I told her about what happened in the office. She was just as shocked about the god bit. The next day I entered the classroom and sat down early. As people came in, they would make some sound of discomfort or fear and rush out of the room. Once the teacher came into the room, they sighed. Hello, Midoriya. Why haven't you told anyone you flew away? I looked upset. They kept rushing out before I could, and a few looked sick. The innocent cinnamon roll act worked as everyone entered the room. Once everyone walked in, I headed to the front of the classroom and bowed. I am sorry about the stunt yesterday. I was emotionally drained from work and years of bullying. I just couldn't help myself. Luckily, Queen Replicator had the others become armor and flew me to the ground. I went to my chair and we had class like normal. When lunch came, people tried to sit with me and tried to become my friends. When I started to get irritated for them getting too close, Queen hissed. People backed away and I relaxed some. Sorry, but you guys were too close to me. I need to be able to breathe. They all apologized and we all ate lunch somewhat easily. Queen kept people from touching me when I flinched. After school, I ran home and saw Auntie Mitsuki and Bakugo in the living room. Oh, Bakugo, why weren't you at school today? You missed a test in science. I got a tackle hug from him as he rambled off apologies. He then explained his bullying was originally just to protect me from dying as a hero. He didn't mean to go so far. I forgave him and they joined us for supper. Before supper, I went into my mini blacksmith shop in the garage and started to make something from metal. Replicators A through J, collect trash please. No stealing backpacks and other people's property even if they throw it at you. They left and Bakugo lit the forge for me. So they collect trash, and that's why I saw one leave a trash can. They can do a lot more, but with my quirk I can do a lot. They are just a bit of it. Yes, Queen, some of the trash will become leather and iron for Whiplicator. I grabbed some metal I already had and began to mess with it, slowly making it into an item for Bakugo. About half an hour later, all 10 replicators I sent out returned with all but one dumping their haul. Bakugo was stunned and looked at all the trash. I will explain in a bit, Bakugo. Just let me get to work. I changed the giant pile into the mix of vibranium and stainless steel, then made the smaller pile into leather and iron. Okay, explain how you are so powerful. You literally turned trash into metal and leather. I laughed and told him that after looking at DnD stuff, I jokingly did a spell and it worked. After that, I finished what I was making and handed it to him. He put on the gloves and looked confused. I showed him that they make his explosions more focused. Don't use these on anyone, but villains also use them for your test into UA. With them on his hands, I tinkered with them to make it a simple movement of the thumb to expand or focus the blast. Thanks, and I will. Wait, I thought you were applying to UA. Bakugo said, a tad confused and worried. I shrugged. I will think about it. I rather not step on your big ego. Hey. We both laughed and went upstairs for supper with Katsuki, showing Auntie what I made him. No offense, Izuku, but will it be able to handle his explosions? I nodded. Right now it's a mix of vibranium and iron. As his quirk gets stronger from use, I might have to change its metal mix, but I will only do as needed for it. If I use a mix that absorbs about 50% of his blast now, it would just be a small firecracker. After they left, I headed back to the garage to see Queen still eating. Starting tomorrow after school, I will start to clean up a beach. That way I do a good deed, strengthen my body, and increase how many spells I can do a day. Queen asked, can I make more replicators? Might be able to make a battleship with enough. I laughed softly. Sure, but what will be the ammo? In her own way, she gave me a seriously. Look, oh yeah, you guys could be used as ammo. Well, I'll make the beach stuff into wood once I've moved it and such for floating replicators. I'm thinking wood enhanced with vibranium and a thin coat of natural latex from the aloe plant. My mom chuckled. Sounds like you're planning world domination. I shook my head. Nope, maybe a good vacation for us both. Could make a second queen and place her at a magma vent eating lava rocks until she creates a replicator island. There can only be one queen you. If you make another there will be a war. Mom looked at me for a translation, so I sighed. She said only one queen can exist or there will be a war. Maybe a princess then. Okay, I get it. Only we can make the blocks. No need to scream. Mom laughed and we both went to bed. The next day after school I headed to the beach and started to clean it up without any trouble. I found an old fridge which could easily weigh 200 pounds and was able to lift it with one hand easily. Once I discovered that I just sorted and stacked stuff up so I can convert them all and feed them go queen. By the time I was done I made sure no one was watching and tried to lift up a stack on a plate of replicator blocks. I struggled to lift it for a few seconds, then I was slowly able to lift it up. While I lifted it up I realized that my body was getting more and more muscular. Even though I was mostly using my arms and my shirt sleeves were ripping, so were the legs of my pants. I kept lifting and moved under the plate of trash. When I got fully under it I did squats until I got bored of it an hour later. By that time the replicators I had become a comb to look for glass shards was done and made a good-sized pile. After figuring how much there was I came up with an idea. Queen think a replicator-based weapon would be useful. Might have to use a slight bit of magic to unify and undo the blade, but that's it. Queen looked up at me. What are you thinking? I smirked as I pointed to the glass. The replicator weapon will be a handle full of replicator pieces with a replicator block bag of holding. Some pieces are special unbreakable glass and the rest are the regular metal ones. Queen did her equivalent of a nod and I began to turn the glass into special glass and had her convert it. Once that was done I changed the trash over and waited. It took an hour for her to convert it all, but by then I had fixed my clothing to fit me and got my new measurements. I went up 3 sizes in everything, which sucks cause they will cost a ton to buy and I didn't want to drain my saving. With all the pieces made I headed home with Queen now alone having to be my backpack. I know you became bigger to not have to constantly control other replicators when in backpack mode, but now people think I am crazy talking to a clicking backpack. Queen hissed, the insult I attack. I groaned, you can't just attack people. I want to be a hero, not a thug. She huffed and stayed quiet. I chuckled and got home. Hey mom, I already cleaned off the beach and I need more clothes. I accidentally gained a lot of muscles. When she looked at me she sputtered a bit. You're also a good bit taller. You're almost as tall as your dad. I nodded and went up to my room to grab all my clothes. Queen sent out a group to collect town's trash again. Need the matter for my clothes and school uniform. Mom, I'm going to make a new item. Avoid the garage. With that said, I spent the night making the handle for the replicator weapon. Once I finished it, I fixed my clothes and took a shower. When I came down, I created breakfast again and ate early with Mom walking in as I finished my half. Wow, you're up early. I blush. I didn't sleep actually. It took me a while to fit the clothes and uniform properly. Mom sighed and called the school saying I wasn't coming in due to another Quirk incident. Up to bed, mister. You will sleep today and tonight, then go to school tomorrow. If Katsuki shows up after school, do not show him whatever you made. I got a call yesterday from Mitsuki saying he blew a hole in the wall. I nod and head up to bed tired. Queen walked in and tapped me. Don't you have school? Get up, master. I look at her. Mom called in so I don't have to go to school. Let me sleep, okay? Queen smirked in her own way. Want me to go instead of you? I take notes and everything for you. Well, not your homework. You gotta do that. I sighed and told Mom Queen's idea. Mom was against it until I created a version of a wireless camera and screen. After a while of testing with using it to control Queen wirelessly, Mom agreed. She went to school for me as a replicator night as she collected some spare replicator blocks to become bigger. She flew there and walked into the classroom. When the teacher saw her, he groaned. Izuku, you're sick. Go rest. I chuckled. I am. This is Queen in replicator night form. I'm using special camera and screen combos to talk. I'll be doing the school work through Queen. Oh, and please don't irritate her. She won't give you lifts or pieces of her body. Mom went to work and I did my long-distance school day. It was nice, except I had to translate Queen often. I had to censor a couple of them, especially when 2 of the more liberal girls invited me to a non-existent pool party. Queen called them lying sluts with a lot of extra bits. During lunch she stayed in the classroom and so did Katsuki. At the end of the day Queen flew home and I took a nap until supper. When supper came I woke up to Queen carrying it up to me. I may be a king of replicators, but I don't servants or grunts. I always ask if they want it for a reason. The reason is because I want friends. Queen laughed. I understand, but you need to give us voice boxes or speakers of some sort. I nodded and ate supper. I slept that night and went to school with Queen back in bug mode. At the end of the day Aizawa drove up to the school. Midoriya, we need to talk, and so does the one you met first. I nodded and we drove off. I wonder what All Might and Aizawa want to talk about. When Aizawa got me to UA, he woke me up and we headed to Nezu's office. All Might was truly smiling. Nezu was drinking tea, and Midnight tried to grab me with her new whip. Replicator caught hers and grabbed her before dragging her away. Why is she always here? Did she not learn from the first time? I was annoyed as Replicator returned a bit later and jumped into the bag. Nezu laughed. She is one of the best poetry and music teachers available. Now we want you to be a dual classer. One of the first. You will spend morning in support and afternoons in hero training. The first day will be the reverse since Aizawa hates the opening ceremony. I nodded and Queen clicked some. Be nice, Queen. Just because I'm being asked to do support doesn't mean they think we are weak. I began to tinker as All Might walked over. Also, I want you to be my successor, the next holder of my quirk. I finished and gave what I made to Queen. What do you mean by making King the next holder of your quirk? All Might, Nezu. And Aizawa backed away slightly as Queen spoke. I'm guessing All Might's quirk can be passed on to another person, similar to how an artificer can boost someone else's gear. All Might nodded. Yes, but do you accept my power? That's when my guardian god showed up. All Might, I am sorry, but your quirk will hinder the powers I gave him. His powers are based on his DNA, and if yours and the previous holder's DNA enter his body, it'll screw them up. I then thought of something. Guardian, what if I become a changeling then take his quirk? The changeling rearranges his DNA to look like other people, so maybe. Guardian laughed. You are a clever boy. That is the only loophole, but only your changeling form will be able to use his quirk. I used race change and became a changeling. Everyone watched shocked as my skin turned gray and my hair was snow white. That's when Midnight walked in and screamed. I smirked and became her, clothing and all. She tried to hit me with her whip, but I caught it and yanked it from her. Hello, you slut. How about you kneel to the real queens of Japan? Nezu was laughing like a madman. Aizawa looked amused. All Might was chuckling, and Midnight knelt. I changed to look like my old self and tossed her back her whip. Midnight, it's best you leave the room. We aren't done talking. She walked over and whispered, if we ever date, I hope that night we continue this. I blushed as she walked out with a smirk. Once she was gone, I accepted All Might's quirk. For the next couple days, I trained with it and mastered it. I then spent the next few months training and building some simple stuff board. I woke up to Queen acting like an alarm clock on the day of the test. If you thought the regular beeping alarms were annoying, you'd be mistaken. She was screaming through a megaphone she made from replicator blocks. Wake up, King. It's time for the test. Get out of bed. Hurry up before I bite you. After about the second loop, I punched her across the room and stood up. I looked at my hand, stunned when I saw I had made replicator blocks coat my fist when I punched her. This will be interesting. I can control blocks directly now. I focused a bit and made myself a hoverboard. Not the real thing, just the rip-off wheeled thing from the 2010s. After being happy with my ability, I rode it to the bathroom, showered, got dressed, had it change wheels for legs, went downstairs, reformed the wheels, and headed to the kitchen. Mom laughed. Nice to see you're still creative, but I don't want you to be lazy. I explained what I just figured out and she congratulated me before giving me my breakfast. After that, I walked to UA and looked over the paperwork, ignoring the people looking at me and Queen. Bakugo saw me and talked to me. Hey Izuku, ready for the test? I nodded and headed off, going to do the support class test, then the hero test. Have fun with the written test. After searching for an hour, I found the room. I went in, got a number, and ended up waiting to show off my replicator handles, and if it's accept, I will then have to build something faux boost a random hero which will be given to me. The last 3 people in front of me had their creations fail. When Power Loader saw Queen, he backed away and she clicked happily. So numbed 42,069, what do you have to offer? Other than that bug? Queen hissed. I am Queen Replicator. I am not a simple bug, you human backhoe. I glared at Queen. Be nice, he is going to be our teacher if we pass, and you do look bug-like, so you can't be mad. Sorry about Queen. She's part of my quirk and she's very vocal. Power Loader nodded. So what did you bring other than Queen Replicator? I pulled out 2 handles in a small box. I tossed the box to the side and it exploded, coating the dummy. I tossed it out in ropes, replicator blocks, slime, and a few other binding agents so whoever the box catches can't escape no matter what quirk they have. That impressed Power Loader and he pointed to the handles. What are these? I picked them up and headed to a weapons area. Tell me what weapons you want me to use on each target. He laughed. Crossbow, gun, tomahawk, and sword. As he spoke, the weapon one handle would become it and I would use it. I shot a few crossbow bolts at a dummy, shot down a flying target with my gun, and tossed one handle into a barrel as a tomahawk which returned to my hand after doing damage. With a smirk, I formed 2 broadswords and single-handed wielded them as I sliced up a giant target, making them fall apart easily. These handles use my quirk to make the weapons. The ammo is created with energy. Power Loader was stunned and said, "You're in, bud. I'll see you Monday morning." I chuckled. I also have to do the hero test. Nezu wants me to dual class. If I get in heroes class, I'll see you Monday afternoon. I rushed off and headed to the hero test. Getting there as Present Mike was explaining the bots bit of the test. Some blue-haired teenager was complaining about the pamphlet being wrong and then at me for being late. Queen formed a megaphone again. Shut up, blue hair. King was doing the support class test as ordered by Principal Nezu himself. Now sit down and shut up. Yo cockatoo, sorry for being late. A lot of people was ahead of King and please continue about the fourth bot and its status. Present Mike yelled back. Thank you, Queen Replicator. Now how about you turn into a backpack and shut your clickers? I grabbed the megaphone. Be nice, she might summon another swarm. I then headed to my seat and sat down for the last of the meeting until it was physical test time. I got onto the bus and headed to my test site and smirked as I talked to Queen. Should I do close or ranged? Close and speed. Maybe also bomb arrows. I nodded and set up a handle as a giant sword and a crossbow. Right when the doors opened, I rushed in forming replicator flight armor. I jumped up and started to blast bits of the bots away suddenly. Follow that bug boy. There's no countdown in real life. I chuckled and let them find some bots as I send out a flood of replicators. As bots are destroyed, they are consumed and buildings are repaired as people move away from them. After a while, I decide to have more fun creating giant replicators which just straight up fight some bots while forming around people, putting them onto their backs. That's when the 0-pointer showed up. I was about to help people evacuate when I saw a person pinned under the rubble caused by the giant bot. Mega Replicator stopped the 0. I flew down to the rubble and used spare replicators to move it before having them drag her away. Once she was gone, I smirked and jumped onto Mega Replicator and have it launch me at the 0-pointer's head. As I fly over, I swing 2 giant swords around, slicing off the armor off its arms, chest, and face before I suddenly activate a new ability. The scroll says, Replicator Morph, become a giant human form replicator. I smirk, Queen activate Replicator Morph. What happens next in a couple of seconds is fun, for me that is. Replicator blocks and I fuse together, creating a giant replicator looking like a person. Because I had my replicators eat so many fallen robots, I was taller than the 0-pointer. Time for my lunch. I literally tossed the giant robot into the air and swallowed it whole. After a few seconds it was converted and I returned to my regular changeling body. With the 0-pointer gone, I sent out a wave of healer replicators to heal any injured and to repair the damaged building. By the time Recovery Girl came out to heal people, it was done and she saw a few replicators fixing damaged clothes. I avoided her giant needle cane and sighed. Sorry, Recovery Girl, you know how I am. You can still pass out candy though, and you can go to another site to heal the others quicker. She sighed then laughed. Can you create a lift for me? I nodded and a replicator formed with a seat for her. Once she sat on it, it formed a steering wheel and pedals. Have fun driving, Recovery Girl. It also has some healers and others to help pass out candy in it. She smirked and nodded. Let's burn rubber. She was then gone. Everyone suddenly had candy in their hands and you just see a trail of smoke climbing up a nearby wall. Queen and I look at each other. I think I messed up Queen. All she did was nod and sigh. I reformed the flight armor and followed her. Honestly, I might have given her giant replicator transport too much speed. I had to fly ahead of her and signal it to slow down as I moved people out of the way, as a lot were injured here. Recovery Girl and I spent the next hour healing all the people and me making sure she slows down when she is halfway down the wall into the next site. When we finished, I got her to her office and took back the replicators. She understood. I kinda went speed demon on the one you gave me. Sorry about that, but I enjoyed that ride. See you Monday if you get hurt. I chuckled and headed home as I popped my back. Queen was currently napping in the bag of holding, so I had some peace and quiet. Once I got home, I ate supper and went to bed, where I slept soundly. Today was bonkers. I groaned as I punched Queen again and sat up. I know you like being my alarm clock, but I'm not in the mood to get more disturbing the peace ticket. Seriously, if I get one more ticket for it, I am removing your speech cube. She nodded and ran off to do something. I headed downstairs and ate my lunch because I slept in. The test was literally yesterday, and using a lot of magic tired me out. As I finished eating my sandwich, I turned on the TV to see a video of me in giant human replicator form eating the 0-pointer on the news. This made me worried, as the giant form is just me a lot bigger. When the clip ended, the news reporter claimed I was a villain attacking UA, destroying its property. Should I be seen, I will be immediately arrested. I groaned and called Nezu. You have a leak or someone snuck onto the school grounds. There's a clip of me eating the 0-pointer on the news. I told him, a bit irritated. Nezu chuckled. Don't heroes in training usually want the spotlight to themselves? What's wrong with it? I growled. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because they said I was a villain. There was silence for a bit before I heard windows breaking, a flurry of cuss words, and Present Mike screaming like a bitch. The call then ended, and about 5 minutes later the news channel apologized that their man got the story wrong. Once that was done, I decided to change up my look some. I made my hair the same color as the metal replicator pieces, made my freckles shine some, turned my eyes a deep blue, and made myself a little bit shorter and less muscular looking. Happy with my new look, I sent a picture of it to Mom and Katsuki saying, I'm going to look like this for a bit. The news called me a villain, then retracted it about 10 minutes later. You know, most won't believe it. Once they both said okay, I headed out to get some air. Walking down the street, nothing major happened until some idiot saw Queen on my shoulder. It's the big villain. Someone get him. I face-palmed as Kamui Woods trapped me in his lacquer cage. Once he was sure I was trapped, I just sat there and said, just call Nezu please. He will straighten all this BS. He laughed and took me to jail. Once I got to the prison and in a quirk dampening cell, everyone looked stunned. Nothing was happening to Queen, so I decided to mess with them some. My skin slowly turned to its new natural gray color. My hair lost its shine, and I grew more muscular while Queen began to call pieces from the replicator bag to make herself bigger. This made all of the police freak out, as instead of us getting weaker, we were getting stronger. This made them call the riot squad to guard me. When Nezu arrived an hour later, all he had to say was boo to scare any of my guards. I was now 8 feet tall, had replicator blocks slowly covering me, and Queen was the size of a horse. Midoriya, quit messing with the police. I know this stuff doesn't mess with your quirk. I sighed and returned to the look I chose this morning. You had to ruin the fun. I was going to form claws and roar at them. I then decided to try out my unsettling laugh. The results were perfect. The riot squad literally dropped their stuff and ran screaming. Nezu joined in as it was funny. Once we stopped laughing, we left the police department and headed to UA. As we walked there, I gave him an idea. Since some quirks or powers will be seen as villainous, maybe a dorm system would be best, also much more security. With the plan fully talked about, he agreed and began to set up the dorm system and more. On my way home, I ran back into Kamui Woods. When he tried to catch me again, I allowed Queen to eat the branches he grew. As he kept trying, all he did was allow Queen to make a ton of wooden replicators. Once he realized what was going on, he panicked. I had them trap him and rolled him around some before we released him. That is for imprisoning me under false pretenses and for trying to do it again. I left with my replicators, leaving behind a barfing hero. By the time I got home, there was a line of idiotic barfing heroes. All Might, Aizawa, and my mom were waiting for me. Young Midoriya, why is there a line of barfing heroes? I sighed. Kamui Woods falsely arrested me, then tried again. The others then tried, so I made hamster balls around them and rolled them around until they gave up. What I don't get is that when I was with Nezu, they didn't attack me. That final bit made All Might and Aizawa furious. They said they would look into it and both left in a huff. Mom sighed before suddenly getting an evil grin. Izuku, how about you and I make some more homebrew spells and items? I walked in and spent hours making a collection of prank spells to use on heroes who attack me tomorrow. I might have to make a villain persona for tomorrow for when I prank stupid heroes just in it for fame and money. After a good night of sleep, I decided to create a villain version of me. Using my new changeling body, I created a new look just to mess with people. My new look was based on an ancient cartoon series called Street Sharks. I turned into a black so dark it kinda looked like I was a mess up in Photoshop. I made my teeth, jaw, and claws into metal, and I made sure to increase my muscle mass as I became a great white shark human hybrid. With my look decided on, I showed Mom. She liked it but had me add some neon green markings to make glow when roaring. With that all set up, I used a warping spell to end up in the center of town way up in the air. As I came down, I roared and ate a tunnel into the ground. As I dug around, I made sure to avoid the plumbing and wiring underground. After some digging, I found some villains' underground base. I found a small girl, and after calming her down, I looked them over. She was covered in scars, bloody wounds, and she was so skinny it was obvious she was malnourished. What's your name, little girl? She sniffled. Emery, are you one of Overhaul's men? I shook my head and motioned her to stay quiet. I quickly healed her and headed through the tunnels. As I explored, I found an old man on life support and quickly healed him as well. He was about to freak out until Eri tackled him. Grandpa, you're finally okay. He chuckled and I motioned for him and Eri to follow me out. As I dug a way out, Overhaul showed up. Chisaki, what have you done to me and Eri? My name is Overhaul now, old man. I'm going to erase quirks using Eri's blood now. This time you die. I heard an odd noise and someone coughing up blood. Mysterious savior, protect Eri. I give you my blessing to raise her. Please save my granddaughter from this madman. I turned and saw from the wall around Overhaul's hand spikes had speared the old man. With a growl, I pulled out my replicator bag. Queen, it's time for a feast. Activate the Nakwata swarm. Out came a bunch of glowing replicators, but these one's pieces are triangles and much sharper. One cut the spikes as I rehealed the old man while the rest attacked Overhaul and his goons. I quickly got him and Eri out of the basement and pointed him in the direction of the police station. As they headed that way, Overhaul popped out of the ground and completely eviscerated the old man. Eri screamed and I reverted to my real look as a changeling. What did you just do, Overhaul? Overhaul growled. I just killed an obstacle between me and erasing all quirks. You are the next one. He sent spikes at me only for my Nakwata swarm to chop them down. That's when Queen crawled out of my bag and yelled, "Okay, Plague Doc wannabe, you're now going to pay." Babies, the replicator blocks of all my swarms, the basics like Queen, the wooden lacquer swarm, Whiplicator squadron, and one of my newer creation, the elementals. The elementals are literally made of fire, water, earth, and air. After a couple of minutes of them distracting Overhaul, I got my wits together and decided to be very showy. Elemental formation. The wind blows, fire burns, the rain falls, and the earth crumbles. As I said that phrase, the elementals formed a ring around me and a beam of light surrounded me. Once the light vanished, I stood there as a being of pure energy. I walked over to Overhaul, absorbing every spike, bullet, and his minions. Yes, the heartless bastard used his own henchmen as weapons against me. Now I am beyond furious, and this bastard will pay. With a swipe of my hand, I cut off both of his hands and cauterized the cuts. I smirk and punch Queen into the air right before she becomes an alarm. Got you this time, Roach Queen. Now from now on, be gentle with your wake-up calls. We have a young princess here. She growled as she reformed on the ground. Dirty trick king. I thought you were still asleep. I laughed and stuck out my tongue before I gently woke up Eri. Eri, time to get up. We have to go to school. She slowly woke up and went to shower and get dressed. I headed downstairs, summoned breakfast, and got my mom up for work. After I got mom up, Eri came down to eat. I showered and ate as well. I put Eri on my back and remade the cheap 2010 seconds hoverboard thing. Hang on tight, Eri. This is going to be fast and fun. Replicator blocks wrapped around us so I couldn't accidentally drop her. With Eri secure, we took off. Of course, people were stunned when I had the replicator board, as I'm now calling it, launch over the road, walk on walls, hang from the underside of the overpasses as we headed straight to UA. People recorded what I was doing as Eri was laughing and screaming as she enjoyed it. Once we arrived at UA, I dropped her off at Nezu's office, signed the adoption papers, cause why not, and headed to a 1. I of course left Eri some replicators, which numbers are almost always growing. I left her a Z. Replicator Squad A, Elemental Set A, and Lacquer Platoon A. As I walked to a 1, I spoke to Queen. Of course, it ended up an argument as she didn't want another Queen to exist. In the classroom, I waved to Aizawa and headed to my seat saying, "Fine, Queen, we will talk about this later. If Eri makes a replicator king or queen of her own, I'm not destroying it. Neither are you, so don't think of it." Queen clicked angrily but sighed. Fine. But if she makes both, one must die. Only one per person deal. I nodded and watched as the rest of my class walked in. Bakugo and the blue-haired dude came in first. Bakugo nodded to me and sat at his seat, with his feet up. Before Blue Hair could berate him, I said, "Don't even start it, Blue Hair. He won't listen to you. Katsuki, feet down please, or you'll get a desk made of replicators." His feet were down instantly, since he knows they will pinch or hit him at a moment's notice. Blue Hair bowed to me at a perfect 9 tidic. "Great, he's a private school kid. Thank you for having him set his feet down. Also, I am sorry for yelling at you on Friday. I should have expected you would have had a reason to be late." I stopped him before he could talk anymore. "It's fine, just please stop raising your voice. I had to give my daughter a ride to school on a replicator board and she screamed as she enjoyed it. Before you start a tirade about it, she is adopted. I saved her yesterday from a villain." The rest of the class came in and was chatting before Eri came running in with her replicator squads on and behind her defending her. "Daddy, big scary monster." I quickly hugged her and looked at the monster. I nearly busted out laughing when I saw it was just Hound, the canine hero. "Princess, he is not a monster, sweetie. He is a hero. His name is Hound and his quirk makes him part dog. He may howl when excited, but he's a nice guy, I promise. I trained with him before I saved you." Eri still looked scared and I sighed. "Aizawa, may I have Eri stay with me today? I think it'll take a bit for her to adjust to good people." He sat up in his yellow sleeping bag, scaring the girls. "Fine. Just make sure she doesn't mess with the quirk apprehension test." I nodded as he tossed us all gym uniforms and quickly equipped mine like in video games of D&D. Eri pouted some and I couldn't help but laugh. Got a spare, Aizawa? I'll resize it for her." Nezu came up the hallway panting. "There you are, Eri. Sorry, I should have warned you about Hound." Eri hugged him as I began to mess with the uniform to resize it. "It's okay, Nezu. You didn't know how I would react." I handed her the uniform and she equipped it like I did. This made Blue Hair curious and demanding. "Okay, explain. You said you adopted her. How do you both have the same quirks by the look of it?" I groaned and Eri glared. "Look, Blue Meanie, Daddy saved me and Guardian blessed me. Now go bully someone else." "Guardian?" I chuckled. "I'm not explaining him. Get changed or Aizawa may expel you." He did expel an entire class. I picked up Eri and formed the replicator board, stuff taking off. By the time they all got to the testing area, Eri and I were using a water control quirk to pass a ball of water elemental replicator blocks around. They were stunned to see the blocks floating, but they stayed quiet as Aizawa tossed me a softball after explaining the test. I caught it and went to a circle. Can I just use 1% off what I have? I don't want to go all out yet." He sighed. "Do 1% then all out." "I'm curious." I nodded and sighed. "Everyone please stay behind the barrier." A wall of my special glass replicator blocks formed before them. That's when a scroll showed up for Eri and we read it and smiled as I said, "Battlefield freeze. Ultimate protection. A glow of gold covered everyone and everything all over town and further. I then popped my shoulder and said, "Elemental formation. The wind blows, fire burns, the rain falls, and the earth crumbles." Elemental replicator ring formed as I became energy again. After that I said, "Collector activate all." My body of energy began to morph, some becoming bigger and stronger. I then spit at the ball, a tower of replicators. The ball just vanished. The machine it was attached to said, "Error, too much info." Everyone was silent except Eri, who did the same thing as me. Once she mimicked me, she hugged me. I chuckled and held her as I flew us away from the undamaged testing area. The rest did the ball toss with much less impressive scores. Eri and I got the best scores in all the tests before we became flesh again. Aizawa sent me and Eri off to the support class as we were halfway flesh again. When we got to that class, only our eyes were energy. Power Loader stuttered a bit. Midoriya, who's the girl, and why are your eyes just energy?" I explained what happened and the entire class relaxed. I started to build stuff with Eri, grabbing what I would ask her for. She watched and would help me out. Everyone thought it was cute except some dude with a robotic leg. I asked Eri to grab me a certain screwdriver type. He took it from her, then tripped her. When I asked him to apologize, he didn't. I actually had to restrain Queen from killing him. Power Loader was about to get mad, but then I had an idea. How about a challenge? Power Loader's biggest problem is when he runs into a material he can't dig through. The safest and fastest method to fix it, in his opinion, wins. Deal. Robot Leg agreed and started to build what he wanted while I walked out of the room. I quickly called Guardian and asked for his help. Luckily, as an answer, I got a scroll and a new power. Apparently, Eri got one as well while I was out. I returned and began to build a much stronger version of his hero suit with some sharper scoop teeth. With it built, I backed up some and activated my new ability. My power flowed through the entire suit before I sat down and coughed a little bit. As Robot Leg finished his, I took a small nap to recharge some magic. His machine was just new scoops for his old suit with diamond tips. Power Loader wouldn't even touch them as he knew the diamond blades would shatter, hurting him. When he switched to mine, he knew this was different from his usual upgrades. He headed to a room full of tough metal, nearly unbreakable stones, and targets. I summoned a wall of my special glass replicator blocks and was accidentally on the wrong side of it. He barely tapped the obsidian with his new outfit and it sank in an inch easily. When he started to dig through it, he sent shards flying out of excitement. I, being on the wrong side, get nailed a bit. Eri screamed as she saw me bleeding. I motioned for her to calm down as I removed the shards. The wounds instantly healed and I used magic to repair my uniform. Eri relaxed and waited for Power Loader for finish as I had my replicator handles become shields to stay safe. Power Loader apologized for getting excited, but he loved it. I took down my wall and repaired the obsidian, bedrock, and the metals he destroyed. Queen caught me with her children as I got weak suddenly. Eri ran over and hugged me as I sat in the metal chair. I returned it and chuckled. "I'm fine, my snowball princess. I didn't mean to scare you." Queen, thanks for the chair. I didn't expect my new feat's ultimate upgrade, ultimate repair, and unbreakable infusion to drain me so much. Queen chuckled. "It's fine, King. Princess Eri, you may make your own replicator king later to help you make your own army later, okay? Just one though, understood?" Eri nodded and sat in my lap as I had the chair form multiple legs and carry me back to my workstation. Robot Leg apologized to Eri for being a jerk and she gave him a metal rose she was working on as I made the suit for Power Loader. "It's okay. If I was in your shoes, I might have done the same." I hugged my daughter and we made some support gear to help heroes entertain kids. Luckily, Eri was able to help me test them. Everyone loved Eri, so Power Loader lets Eri stay with me in the morning and help us test child-based support stuff. On my way home with Eri, with me still in the chair, a portal appeared and another me popped out. Eri looked confused until he said, hello, what's your quirk? Also, what's with that chair? It looks epic." Queen hissed at him. "Stay away from King, you fake. Explain yourself before I have my children attack you." He took a step back. "Oh yeah, sorry. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I am a Reaper and my quirk is the code. I'm from another reality. I didn't mean to startle you." I smiled. "So there's a lot of me out there. You know my name. This is my daughter Eri. And this is Replicator Queen. My quirk is Replicator King and a few others. This chair is actually replicators working together to support me as I regain some magic energy." I motioned for him to grab on as a platform popped out of the back of my chair. "Get on and hold tight. I think Mom will want to see you." Once he was on, we took off again. Needless to say, Mom nearly fainted until Cyber, as we now call him, explained where he was from. He stayed for supper and I explained my quirk or blessing to him. He was surprised though about my life though. I wasn't even in UA fully when I saved Eri. I had a ton of quirks, and Eri has my powers too. After supper, Eri went to bed and I showed him my blacksmith setup and began to work the metal. He watched me in awe, and when I finished a sword made of a new metal I have been working on and painted it. After giving it a circuit pattern of a neon green with a black background, using special paint I soaked it in nitric acid, fusing the paint to the sword completely. I cleaned it up and handed it to him. think of it as a gift. It's a new metal I have been working on. I have yet to test how strong it is, but I'm sure you can enjoy it. Cyber chuckled. Think you can make a scythe of this later. I am a reaper after all. I nodded and checked my scroll showing I had his quirk and all the codes he made. I sure can. I'll deliver it to you when it's done. He said bye to Mom and left saying, I hope you find a good girlfriend soon. I must warn you though, some girls have ulterior motives, so be careful. A broken heart nearly destroyed one of us. I nodded and waved bye to him. After creating a scythe for Cyber and sending it to him, I went to bed as well. I'm going to wake up early and make tools of my new metal to test it. Tomorrow will be interesting. Unlocked feats. King Replicator lets Izuku control Replicator and their blocks. Also lets him speak to Queen without a translator block. Ultimate Spellcaster can cast any spell, cantrip without materials, vocalization, or hand motions. Also unlimited spell slots. Artificer's Envy can make anything mechanical or magical without any problem. Even can create homebrew stuff. Unsettling Laugh. Izuku can laugh in a way to make all who hear it fear him. Only those mentally warped are immune. Best example of immunity is Nezu. Class Shift lets Izuku become any class from DnD. Currently an artificer, but can become a ranger, fighter, monk, etc. whenever he desires. Race Shift. Izuku can shift between any DnD race including homebrew races. Currently a changeling due to One for All. Replicator Morph. Become a giant human form replicator. Savior's Blessing. When saving others you can heal those or helping undoing any injuries as they form. Quirk Collector. Gain a copy of any quirk you've been within a mile of. This feat is very dangerous as you gain that quirk's drawback unless you figure out how to remove them. Battlefield Freeze creates a field around Izuku to stop, repair, and sometimes cause damage to whatever is in it. Ultimate Upgrade. This lets Izuku make anything better. A good example is a cheap wind-up robot toy into a fully functional robot servant. Ultimate Repair. He can fix anything that's been damaged or destroyed, making it literally new again. Unbreakable Infusion. Izuku can make anything he chooses unbreakable. I woke up early this morning and tested my new metal, enjoying the lovely patterns I could easily give it. Once I finished my tools, weapons, and a big upgrade to my replicator handles. The new nameless metal replacing the old blocks in it and reinforcing the glass as well. With the pieces colored with black and green, I headed upstairs and woke up Eri. She got dressed while I cleaned up my forge zone. Mom made us all breakfast as Queen walked around the room. After a couple minutes, Mom used her quirk to pull her off the wall. Queen stopped that pacing and stand still. That clicking is giving me a headache. Queen nodded and walked away to sit on the couch. I then walked up, showered, and ate with everyone. With the dishes done, Eri and I left with her on my back and my replicator board ready to go. On the way to school, Eri and I had fun. We left early to chase some squirrels and random birds. I had to fight a goose with a gooselicator. It was funny as the real goose looked completely confused at its replicator counterpart. When gooselicator honked off a train horn, the goose literally crapped itself and flew off. Some people thanked us for removing the bell-stealing menace. Eri and I arrived early and she ran over to Power Loader. He was shocked to see Eri at first, but he smiled and picked her up in one of his scoops. I couldn't help but smile as he gave her a white and green jumpsuit. After a couple of seconds she had it equipped and she had a pink kitty version of his gear on. I took a quick picture and listened to them plan a garden to help out the vegetable and fruit-eating students. It could also help train plant-based quirks. Once they were outside digging, I began to test how tough the metal I made is. I pulled a shield out of a bag of holding and placed it on a dummy. Robo-Leg chuckled. That fancy paint job won't last, bud. I smirked. I bet $3 million it lasts through all the tests I'm about to do. He took me up on that bet and regretted it. I used flamethrowers, missiles, bombs, guns, bullets, lasers, even different quirks, and acid against it. The way it's painted made it last through every test. After a while he just groaned mad. Crud, I don't have 3 mil. Can I do payments on it? I just chuckled and tossed him a new leg. Just try this sucker out and I'll say you owe $200. He tried it out and was instantly amazed. It looked a lot sturdier than his current leg, yet weighed almost nothing. After running and such to adjust to it, he said, "What is this thing made of? It is so light, yet all the tests which would dent my current leg didn't even nick it." I just pointed to the shield. Same stuff, just not painted. I call it black iron. I can't really call it steel or anything else really. Also already have the metal, its special paint, and such patented already. As I spoke, a mini portal appeared and a note was put in my hand. After reading it, I just chuckled. Might try that out later. I pocketed the note and began to try out my upgraded replicator handles blade weapons. I had to make some rougher dummies out of iron, wood, Kevlar, and a lot more. They cut through it all successfully, but some took longer than others. I had to test it on cement, so I had to find Cementos and ask for his help. He was shocked when his cement wall was destroyed in one swing. It took us a while to find out what could even stop the blade I made. A mix of adamantium, naquata, vibranium, and tritium, and that only slows it down unless it's thick enough to stop it. After lunch with Eri and some of my classmates, a portal appeared for a second made of shadows. Out popped another me with a skull necklace. Okay, that spell works. What's your quirk, bud? I looked at him with suspicion until he sighed. Fine, I am Izuku Midoriya. My quirk is still kinda unknown. I'm engaged to a princess of hell, and I got visited by Cyber Me. I chuckled. Same name. Going to call my quirk DnD King for now, and I just saved my now adopted daughter. We talked for a bit and I upgraded his staff to my new metal. Thank goodness his magic is focused through the orb and not the wood it was originally made of. I sent him back home and we went to class with the rest greatly confused. Eri and I were playing a quick game of Rock'em Sock'em replicators. When she won, Aizawa walked in and explained what we would be doing. That's when All Might entered the doorway. I am entering like a normal person. I just had my replicators mimic him, but Queen yelled, "I'm an inflatable blonde idiot." This made people look worried and confused until All Might laughed. "Hello, Queen. How's the swarm of its?" She chuckled. "Really good. Just got a few new ones last night." She returned to my shoulder and just waited there as the mimic of All Might returned to the bag. All Might walked over to me. "So Izuku, what have you done lately?" I picked up Eri and she had stars in her eyes. "All Might, meet my adoptive daughter Eri. I saved her from Overhaul. Guardian blessed her like he did me." Eri looked up at All Might and said, "No wonder he hated you. You're bigger than Rappa." Rappa, Eri nodded, one of his minions, focused on boxing and such. I pale a bit. I fought him. He has one hell of a punch. Thank goodness I was in energy form. After that, All Might explained the training today would be 2v2 and a challenge to beat the villain team. As he said that, May, a classmate from the support class, ran up. May, after spotting me, Midoriya, I need some help. I borrowed some replicator blocks and now they are ruining my table. I bolted so fast to them I just vanished. Once I got to the desk, I saw the one she grabbed and a few horrible replicas she made. The replicas were being smashed and broken. When the originals saw me, they came running and hopped into their bag. I glared at May. "Small tip, you better listen too. My tech is part of my quirk and they hate replicas. Be glad they didn't call for backup to kill you." She instantly apologized, saying she wanted to make some configurable gear anyone can use. After a bit of me scolding her, I went back to a 1. I simply equipped a simple set of leather gear, goggles, and a few bottles filled with different potions I have been working on. Eri pouted a bit as she wasn't allowed to fight with me. I had to give her a VR headset version of what I used for class one day. Once she got a replicator avatar made, I had her join me to appease her. I sighed and began to stretch some while I headed down to the hero's waiting spot with Momo and Iritar. While we waited, I asked Momo to create some simple speakers. When time was up, I didn't even have to go outside for Bakugo and Shoto to come charging at us. With a chuckle, Iritar flew among the roofs and Momo helped me fight hand to hand with the villains. After about 10 minutes of us fighting, Iritar set up everything and flew away. I smirked and tossed Momo up and away. Once she was on the roof, I used Unsettling Laugh and sent it through my replicators holding the speakers. As my laugh began to reach its peak, I used an invisibly spell on myself, so I turned invisible. "I'm sorry, Todoroki, but you had to be teamed with Kacchan. It's time to pay the piper, Kacchan." With the duo back-to-back looking terrified, I grabbed a simple flute from Momo and began to play it. I made sure that it sounded perfect yet filled with warped undertones. After a bit, both passed out and Momo and I caught them easily. We took them to the observation deck where everyone was pale and shaking. "Sorry about that. Kacchan was a bully for a good portion of my life. I just got even as I'm a late bloomer." The other teams did their things and I played with Eri until they were all done. I wonder what tomorrow will bring. I glared at the bell-stealing goose I scared off yesterday. It was back and about to steal a new bell. Touch that bell and you will regret it. Eri was using her replicators to make a new gooselicator behind him as he touched the bell. The second his beak touched it, I used a changeling skill called Unsettling Visage, which instantly showed the goose my real face. As the goose backed up, the gooselicator honked its train horn and off the jerk went again. Eri was laughing while we headed on to school. Once we got there, she and I worked on a hologram projector. At first it seemed impossible, but after a while we got it working perfectly. When we finished it, she and I played Smash Bros. Eclipse version. It may have been a silly idea, but after a bit I created a new version of the game. The small edit let us change the fight from 2D arenas to 3D arenas. I understand why they kept it flat, but my hologram projector works much better in a 3D look. After a couple of rounds with everyone, we went to lunch. By the time lunch was over, everyone in both of my classes wanted to own one of my hologram projectors. I literally had to say no so many times Eri was getting mad. Daddy said no, so quit asking. So cute when she is mad. That's when Aizawa found me at lunch. When lunch is over, grab your hero suit and head to the parking lot to go on a field trip. Eri is to stay with Nezu during it. We both nodded and finished our lunches. I handed her off to Nezu and put on my hero costume to get it done. Since everyone else took their time, I was stuck waiting there for a while. I was very tempted to just sit on the bus and sleep. Soon we were all on the bus and off to wherever. Along the way we had a lot of fun talking about our quirk when Asui asked me a question. Midoriya, what exactly is your quirk and how did you become gray at Goose Park? I stiffened slightly. That's very complicated, but I can say this. I'm not a human anymore. I'm a changeling, a species able to shapeshift between humanoid forms. While everyone was looking at me crazy, Aizawa yelled back, you might have to show them your real look and become a tiefling and look. I smirked as I become pure gray with snow-white hair and silver eyes. While everyone's jaws dropped, I formed 2 big horns, a tail, and some claws as my skin became a dark green color. I lost my humanity physically, but my mind and heart are the same. Then to really mess with them, I became a duplicate of Asui and mimicked her usual pose. Midoriya, with such a quirk, I'm guessing you got in through recommendations since you have what seems like multiple quirks. I say, using her voice before I changed to Aizawa. Due to Trouble Child's own choice, he did the entrance exam like most did. Aizawa laughed as I mimicked him perfectly, scaring my classmates. After a while of them being silent, Minta made me mad. Wait, if you can become females, become a SXY1 with giant tits. This made the girls glare at him and my blood boiled. Aizawa gave me a sit-eating grin and nodded, signaling that I can do what I want to him. With a smirk, I decided to pray to Guardian to help me with a prank. Thankfully, Guardian answered with a new scroll and the message that said, "Get the pervert good." With a smirk, I stood up and walked over to the pervert. Once I was next to him, I became a character called Jessica Rabbit. Is this what you wanted to see, big boy? A few of the guys wretched as the girls blushed. Once Minta began to nod, I used my new ability on him. I changed back to normal, but I changed him into Jessica Rabbit with a few changes. His hair stayed purple but smoothed over to look like Jessica's hair. The great balls that are his power became a pearl necklace and bracelets, while his body went from midget to bombshell. Knowing he would attempt to explore his body, I removed all of the nerves that lead to pleasure along with those zones. With a smirk, I said, enjoy being a cartoon woman without any nerve endings for pleasure. That made everyone freeze in shock as we arrived at our destination. Aizawa walked over to me after everyone else got off the bus. What is that new power? I smirked more, mimicking his sit-eating grin. Force changeling. It lets me force someone else to shapeshift like a changeling. They have no way to change back without another's help. Thankfully, I can become stuff that doesn't exist, or mine would have been a real woman instead of a cartoon. Aizawa gave me the grin back and we headed inside. What a start for a school field trip. Unlocked feats. King Replicator lets Izuku control Replicator and their blocks. Also lets him speak to Queen without a translator block. Ultimate Spellcaster can cast any spell, cantrip without materials, vocalization, or hand motions. Also unlimited spell slots. Artificer's Envy can make anything mechanical or magical without any problem. Even can create homebrew stuff. Unsettling Laugh. Izuku can laugh in a way to make all who hear it fear him. Only those mentally warped are immune. Best example of immunity is Nezu. Class Shift lets Izuku become any class from DnD. Currently an artificer, but can become a ranger, fighter, monk, etc. whenever he desires. Race Shift. Izuku can shift between any DnD race, including homebrew races. Currently a changeling due to One for All. Replicator Morph. Become a giant human form replicator. Savior's Blessing. When saving others, you can heal those or helping undoing any injuries as they form. Quirk Collector. Gain a copy of any quirk you've been within a mile of. This feat is very dangerous as you gain that quirk's drawback unless you figure out how to remove them. Battlefield Freeze creates a field around Izuku to stop, repair, and sometimes cause damage to whatever is in it. Ultimate Upgrade. This lets Izuku make anything better. A good example is a cheap wind-up robot toy into a fully functional robot servant. Ultimate Repair. He can fix anything that's been damaged or destroyed, making it literally new again. Unbreakable Infusion. Izuku can make anything he chooses unbreakable. Force Changeling lets a changeling or another form of shapeshifter force a change of look, species, and more onto someone else. They can only force what they can become onto someone else. For example, if they can only become birds, that's all they can force someone else to be. With Minta now a Jessica Rabbit clone with his quirk replacing her jewelry, we arrived at the unseen situation joint. I kept Minta back as I let the others off. When it was just Minta and I left, I explained what he is now, a living cartoon. He was upset a bit as he actually groped himself to feel nothing. I slapped him and then dragged him to the rest of the group, berating him with every step. What a start to a field trip. We all walked in and the Hero 13 looked confused. Well, more like sounded confused, their faces hidden in their costume. Why is there a purple-haired adult here? I quickly bowed. My quirk suddenly evolved again and fired off, making Minta, a purple-haired midget with a perverted streak, into Jessica Rabbit. Jessica Rabbit is a cartoon character from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Fortunately, in our case, cartoons are genderless, so he is still a male if he wants. 13 bonked me. You need to be careful with your quirk. It evolves way too much. That's when Guardian appeared in his ball form and floated nearby. I apologize for his blessing for growing so fast. As powers get mastered, new ones do form. I am Guardian, one of the many gods. Now I must explain this new ability. Izuku, if you master it, you can even affect quirks on purpose. Mine has evolved to fit his new body, but you didn't guide it. Practice enough and you can make quirks evolve, devolve, or completely replace them with another. I must go. I'm not allowed in mortal battles. When Guardian vanished, a black portal appeared and lots of villains popped out. I grinned. Aizawa, may I practice on them? I might be able to unlock some new powers. Queen slapped me and hissed, "Calm down, king. You may practice against replicator knights, but these are real villains." I pouted, "Fine, but if they attack me I will turn them into skeletons." That's when a person who was covered in hands started to speak. Unfortunately, I couldn't stop Queen. "Yo, hand fetish, speak up. Even my super hearing can barely hear you." This made him mad as everyone else chuckled. "F this it. Kill them all, especially that kid with the robot." Aizawa sighed. "Activate the knights, Izuku." With a smirk I tossed my replicator bag and yelled, "Replicators, form Overlord Goblin Battalion." But that a shower of pieces came down and formed into one of the strongest armies you'll ever see. True, even Minda's real body is taller than the goblins, but this army can kill anyone. Once they fully formed, they announced themselves but said King Izuku instead of what they said in the old anime. I smirked and yelled, "Capture them alive. They must atone for their crimes. Cast teleport barrier and perfect defense immediately." Suddenly a huge dome covered all of my class, Aizawa, and 13 before an even bigger one surrounded the USJ. I noticed one guy in particular was panicking as I could see him try to create warp gates out of his body. With a smirk I stuck my hand out of the dome. "I call upon the gods and goddesses of sleep, dreams, and nightmares. Please grant my wish to protect my classmates and knock out our enemies." At first nothing happened before a very violent burst of a blue gas flew out of my hand. It quickly filled the USJ and knocked every villain out except for two. One was a mutant bird with his brain exposed and the other was a minor god. The only reason I know is because he floated using magic like I do. "So your Guardian's newest toy. Don't trust him blindly. He made me and tossed me away after I decided to use his power to become stronger." I floated out of the protective dome and glared at the god. "You chose a life of evil, something he is against. I will always protect those who are weak. I will give strength to those who need it. I will make evil run from my mind. My name is Izuku Midoriya, king of the replicators and future guardian of mankind." I would use the Green Lantern's oath, but that would be kinda cliche right now. Instead I will use this. Warp gate. A gate made of energy suddenly appeared and swallowed the minor god before vanishing. I fell into the dome and panted as Queen created another replicator wheelchair, throne. I overdid it. "I'm so tired. Sorry, Minta. I can't undo the change I did to your body today. I promise to undo it tomorrow first thing." Minta sighed and glared. "If you can't undo it, can you at least let me feel some pleasure?" I groaned. The girls hit him, and Aizawa glared. "I gave you an indestructible body that needs nothing to exist. I will grant you the nerves, but that will make it a week before I can undo the changes. If men try stuff, it's your own fault." I dodged a few flying punches by having my replicator chair scoot backwards. Why is it always me? Apparently the sleeping gas didn't stay after I send the godling away. The first to wake up was Hand Fetish, and the first thing he yelled was, "Nomu, kill the brat on the throne." That's when the purple bird thing started to attack me. Goblins keep everyone else knocked out. I'll deal with Mr. Nomu here. As Hand Fetish and any other thug who woke up gets knocked out again, I lead Nomu to a big flat area. Once there I cast a homebrew spell called Shell Recovery. According to the website, the target gets reset to full HP, spell slots, etc. Once the spell activates, I watch as bits of my body fall off like a plaster mold. When it was finally done, I am fully reset and ready to fight. The next punch from Nomu I easily stopped with one finger. Your quirks are super strength, regeneration, and I guessed since your hand didn't break, shock absorption. All three have a limit, but I don't. Shall I show you those limits? I smirk evilly as I began to change my appearance. The first thing to change was my hands as I created thick emerald claws. When they fully formed, I had my skin become jade and reinforced with gold-colored vibranium. Just to really dig in the point, I grew to the same size as Nomu. Say hello to Obliteration Jade. Nomu, are you ready to fight? The screech from the Nomu shook me a bit, but I took it as a yes. I let the sucker punch me for about a minute before I bitch slapped him into the fake mountain. Crud, I meant to hold back. I hope I didn't already kill it. The following screech and flying rocks told me it was still alive. With a chuckle I jumped to it and yelled, "Jade no, like Screaming Bird. Jade smash Screaming Bird." As I put my hands together and brought them down, I could see the confusion on everyone's face as I made a quote no one recognized. After binding Nomu in magical rope, I changed back to normal and walked over. What? No one watch old hero movies? Seriously, Hulk has inspired some people with quirks that somewhat match what he has. They all groan in annoyance as they realize who I was imitating. I got a few light-hearted punches and we were all interrogated by the cops who arrived soon after. I collected my goblin army replicators as each villain and thug was arrested until we got to Mr. Warpgate. I know you, I recognize you now. You used to be friends with my father. If I remember right, you're Kirigiri. The yellow smoke that was his eyes widened. Izuku Midoriya, is that you? How do you have a quirk? I know your father took your quirk before it formed. I froze and so did the few that heard him. Excuse me, what did you just say? Kirigiri looked worried. Your father didn't hang himself. He faked his death and took your quirk at the same time. I am his butler due to him giving me a stabilization quirk that helps my Warpgate quirk. I grabbed Kirigiri by his metal-covered throat and growled, "Where is he?" Kirigiri and everyone around me freaked out thinking I was about to kill someone. After a long awkward silence, Kirigiri told me where. After dropping him, I changed mine to back to normal, marched out of the USJ, became a gargoyle, and flew to where my father is. Time for a long overdue reunion. I easily removed the roof from the building and dropped in. What I saw in front of me really made me mad. My father was currently having fun with a few new women. Who are you and why have you broken into my bedroom? I growled. Does the name Inko mean something to you? His expression was priceless. Izuku, is that you? How do you have a quirk? I took yours before it manifested. This made me even angrier. Realizing what he said, my father tries to backtrack with the usual weak villains. I did it for your own good. I wanted to hide you from the heroes. I didn't want you to die because you're my son. After a good number of them, I grabbed him by the neck. What did you take from me? My body began to form a stone shell, so his quirk stealing ability can't work on me. What he said next shocked me some. I removed your quirk, which would have let you completely delete any quirk you wanted. Make heroes or villains quirkless. Do you understand why I took it? In a bit of a daze, I dropped him and he tried to delete my powers and one for all. His eyes glowed, so I created a reflective stone mirror on my arm and sent it back at him, making him quirkless. As he mourned his loss of power, I dragged him to All Might, who was currently at USJ. I dropped off my father and growled at him. Listen to the heroes, police, and the guards of whatever prison you end up in. They might protect your now quirkless ass, you bastard. Bakugo dragged me away and began to hum a tune his mother used to sing to us at sleepovers. I slowly relaxed and changed to normal. Thank you. I was about to make him dead for real. My classmates and I were led to school after I asked the police to go easy on Kirigiri. When they asked why, I told them that my dad, though the worthless scum I am related to, blackmailed him into doing it. They understood and said they would try their best. Once we got to UA, my mom ran over and checked to see if I'm okay. I told her everything, including that I found Scumbag in bed with another woman. She was heartbroken and we both went home, where we created a new game. It's called Cheater Smash. All you do is destroy stuff you got from a cheater, and the better the destruction, the higher points you get. Eri was unfortunately confused, but I made the game also into quirk training for her. She would repair different items and we would destroy it again. This made us all tired, and by the end of the day no one wanted to kill Scumbag. Well, Queen wanted to make him into an acid puddle. Oh well, maybe we can have a better day tomorrow. I yawned and stretched before Queen could act like an alarm clock and gently woke up Eri. Morning, Daddy. Is it breakfast time? Eri asked as I woke her. I chuckled and nodded as her hammock was lowered so she could get out. I swapped clothes and headed downstairs to find Mom cooking breakfast. Morning, hun, did you sleep well? Mom asked when she heard me come down. I shrugged and set the table before helping her finish making breakfast. She looked very envious of my replicator handles as they swapped between spatula, knife, ladle, and more as needed. When I noticed, I thought for a bit and looked at Queen, who was currently on the ceiling. She shook her head until a new scroll popped up next to me. I gently grabbed it and read it completely. Mom, do you want to be a replicator duchess? It will let you use my replicator handles, control all but Queen and the king replicator Eri can make, and use the spells on runic replicators. She nodded so fast I instantly remembered how I reacted to watching that old All Might video. With that, I gave her the ability and a small replicator bag. With a smile, I will make you the handles and runic replicators later. She hugged me and finished making breakfast as Eri came down. After she made her high chair, we all ate and cleaned up the dishes. I was about to head to school when Mom reminded me we had the day off thanks to yesterday. Instead of cheering in joy, I groaned. Seriously, I may be able to make anything. I do need some of the better tech in the school's support department to make stuff. My groan got me an earful until Eri walked over and said she wanted to play. Who can deny this cutie? Mom, Eri, and I decided to play a game of snakes and ladders. It's a simple game, so it was easy to teach Eri. Luckily, she won and then saw a commercial on TV about a show with kittens on it. We couldn't pull her away and she started to ask me to get her a kitten. Mom and I both said no, but after a while I thought of something. After getting Eri to calm down, I got to work in the garage. After a few hours of forging metal, I created a replicatty. The kitten-based replicator had fake fur, digital eyes, and claws so sharp it can almost cut time. With it done, I brought it out to Eri. who was happy at first. When she realized it was another replicator, she got mad at me, so I had to do plan B. I gotten a bit over my head adopting her, but hey, no one is perfect. When she calmed down enough to listen, I had her use an ability of ours. She slowly grew a snow-white tail, cat ears, and the odd Nico paws that the wild pussycats have. She was happy and we were glad she calmed down, until she somehow climbed up the wall and hung from the ceiling. We got her down, scolded her, and punished her for climbing the wall. It wasn't even noon yet and I wanted to return to bed. Little did I know it was going to keep going downhill. We ate lunch with her learning to use simple silverware, and the door was busted down by a random villain. Before he could even get his head into the door, Queen attacked. She absorbed a lot of other replicators temporarily and formed a fist to punch him into the car across the street unconscious. I got up and used a binding spell on him so he couldn't move until the police arrived. Of course, I almost got in trouble until they recognized me. I put down Eri for a nap and suddenly another idiot broke into my house. This time I dealt with her with extreme prejudice. Her foot didn't even touch the floor good when I had her bound to the wall. Quirk stopped, gagged, and her pockets empty. When I read her ID, I let her go. Meihatsum, why the F are you breaking into my garage? She apologized and said she hoped to find my black iron recipe to make her own stuff stronger. After helping her make her own metal alloy, which is unique, she was invited to stay for supper. Mom, of course, assumed we were dating, and I told her I don't date thieves. When supper was over, the four of us played a few simple games and sent Mei back home. Eri had fun, I was annoyed, and Mom was exhausted. Now hopefully tomorrow will not be a crazy day. Spoilers, not a thing happening. I gently woke up Eri again and we both had breakfast before some idiot broke in. This flame-bearing, second best, dumpster fire was Endeavor. He grabbed me and growled as he dragged me outside. I led him until we got halfway down the sidewalk before I had replicator blocks grab me and keep me in place. Excuse me, Endeavor, but may I know why you're trying to make me leave my home? I literally have done nothing wrong and I just woke up. Instead of telling me, he tried to melt the blocks holding me in place. After a few minutes, I got annoyed as hell and finally yelled, "Tell me why you are annoying me now, or else, you stupid dumpster fire of a hero." I glared and used erasure from Izawa to end his stupid flames. He panicked at first until he saw my hair floating. So you copied his quirk. Now you're under arrest for illegal quirk usage. I was then tased, causing me to pass out instantly. When I came back to, I was in a jail cell with anti-quirk systems, closed-circuit air supply, and padded walls. Basically any shapeshifting, fluid, gas form quirk's worst enemy. After a few minutes of waiting, the door opened, revealing Endeavor holding a gun. "You need to die. My son must become the #1 hero." I couldn't hold in my laughter as I secretly turned his gun into wood. "You're doing this for your son." "I don't think so. I can see your rivalry with All Might all over your face. Also, I'm not going to be a hero. I'm already a demigod." As I laughed, he tried to shoot me with his now toy wooden toy. When he realized it wasn't working, he freaked out as I activated a quirk I copied. It was similar to Kamui Wood's quirk but can affect only acacia wood, which I did make the gun into. The gun quickly grew vines and branches, tying up the now quirkless dumpster fire. As he fought to get free, I knocked him over. "Think about what you tried to do, you abusive, narcissistic, arrogant dumpster fire." With that, I left and closed the door. I walked through the police station until I got to Detective Naomasa Tsukachi's office. "Hey detective. Anyways, prepare your quirk as I'm in no mood to joke around. Endeavor just dragged me here after breaking into my house and tasing me. I woke up in the cell and Endeavor just tried to kill me, so his kid will be the next All Might since he can't beat him. He is currently bound by acacia wood that grew from his weapon I transmuted into wood." He groaned and started to wave me off. After it sunk in, he stood up. "Endeavor tried to kill you. Does he want your mom to go crazy?" I shuddered a bit as the memory of my mom destroying the news station after they said I was a villain resurfaced. I didn't think of that, but Mom got a power boost. She now has the ability to control replicators, and I also made her quirk stronger, so you might want to put him in protective custody until she calms down. I better go. We both ran out of the office and headed our two different directions. Luckily, I was able to stop Mom from raiding the police station, Endeavor's agency, and the Hero Commission. Why is it always me? I swear it's always me who gets targeted by these idiotic villains wanting my tech for their gang. They have been relentless for the week-long break I've had from school. So many idiots, so many times I've explained the replicators, and so many butts I've had to break. Even Eri has gotten better at controlling her army to help fight. My mom, Eri, and I can easily defeat an army each with no trouble. After eating my breakfast, I put Eri on my back, formed the replicator board harness to keep her on my back, and formed a new version of my replicator board. This one is known by everyone who messed with me in the past week. It actually has a path painted by the Hero Association to warn everyone. Once I'm done forming it, I head out of the garage and smirk as the shark board is formed. In its plain defensive mode, it's just a simple fish similar to a koi. When I activate its attack mode is where it gets its name. Its mouth goes from clear glass windshield into a toothy grin that spins like a crazy food disposal system. Luckily, I can heal people from near death or I'd be a mass murderer. Anyways, I drove to school with people leaving the painted lane and recording me. Once we arrived, I disassembled my shield and entered the classroom. We were to grab what we wanted to use in the sports festival. I only grabbed my replicator handles I've made out of pure black iron and black iron infused glass. Well, I also grabbed a new replicator bag I've been working on, but that's kinda a given. I gave it to Nezu to watch over before we all forced to march into the arena with all the other classes. After marching and listening to Bakugo give a stupid, rage-causing provocation of a speech, it pissed off everyone except me, as I already knew he would do it. When everyone was done booing, we lined up at the starting line of the obstacle course. I had already planned my move as I prepared to spawn a non-lethal version of my shark board. The race started, so I went into full speed mode, playing a certain song on full blast to piss people off. I went through Shoto's giant wall of ice easily and ate one of 3 0-pointers that appeared. When it came to the giant chasm with pillars, I just launched my ass over it using a tail slam. Unfortunately, I hit a very deserving grape-headed jerk who grabbed my board the second it formed and stuck him into the ground. Okay, it was on purpose, but I pretended I didn't know. He had the guts to grope girls around me. I just bulldozed my way through the minefield and got to the finish line, where I napped for a little bit. When the people who finished got through, we found out the twist that I got 1,000,000 points and a big target on my back. Instead of pouting, I just worked on my own and in my shark board dug into the ground. This time, whenever I attacked, only the board's head would poke out. Mostly it was to taunt and scare, so each time I yelled, "Hey, take off, shark head." I of course won with many profanities shot my way, and I was instantly put in first place for the entire event, with a lot of people arguing against it. Eventually they shut up when I let them all fight me at once. Instead of forming an army or a giant mecha, I just formed 4 simple robotic arms on my back like an ancient villain called Dr. Ock. Needless to say, they all lost as I read a book. It was boring the entire time. Well, I did get a lot of numbers afterwards, so maybe not a total loss. I drudged my way into the classroom with Eri on my back. As I passed Kachan's desk, I placed her on it. Play with Uncle Blasty for a bit. She pouted at first, but played some small games of tic-tac-toe as I napped. The sports festival was really tiring for me, and last night I had tons of calls. Mostly people asked if they can my replicator tech. The phone is probably still ringing at home. I learned this afterwards, but when Aizawa walked in, he looked at me confused. "Why is Midori asleep in my classroom and not in the support classroom?" Eri answered, "Idiots keep calling asking for replicator tech. Dad was up all night because of it." Everyone then decided to stay quiet and let me sleep, with a couple taking extra notes for me. They did all the lessons until lunch before they woke me up. I accepted their notes and reviewed them all while I ate. After lunch, Aizawa explained the internships and that we all had to do them. I groaned and dropped my head on my desk, breaking it completely, causing me to end up on the floor. "Okay, problem child. Why did you break the desk?" I groaned again. "May I skip the internship, please? I don't want to deal with people asking for my quirks tech anymore." He sighed. "I can't let you skip them, but since you are in support, I will ask Nezu for his opinion. Speak of the devil and they will appear apparently also works on Nezu. Midoriya can stay in the support class instead of going on internship, but he must go with you to Hasu next week. There's still the tech bandit at large there." I silently cheered from the ground and just laid there as everyone else did, sorted through their invites. Nezu then walked over to me. "As payment for this, I expect my own car. I'm sure you have something in mind." I had to refrain from making a Stuart Little joke, but eventually nodded. He then left and I took Eri down to the support classroom. "Sorry I'm late, power loader. Phone's been crazy after the sports festival and I needed a nap." He laughed. "I understand, kid. If I didn't know it was your quirk, I'd be calling too." Nezu called saying you're making him a custom car. I nodded and Eri went to her custom desk where she tested the kid-related support gear. I headed to a side room and looted it for a lot of different materials. Some rubber to make into wheels, vibranium for the axles and car chassis, titanium for the metal exterior, soundproofing foam, glass, and LEDs for headlights. After I grabbed that, I put it in my area and went up to Nezu where I got his measurements, a DNA sample, and that he loves the more energetic music. With that done, I got to work. I spent the next week just working on Nexus' custom vehicle. My classmates were surprised with what all was going on it. As I finished it, I had Eri help me paint it. When I wasn't looking, I had her paint neon pink cat whiskers on a certain big of it before I had the paint bonded to the vehicle. With it done, I carried it up to Nezu since no one else can drive it. I put it in his office and smirked as he got in. Once he was in and turned it on by having it scan his body and DNA, he rolled down a window. "Okay, this is good so far, but can you explain the 3 buttons here?" I nodded. "The one with the microphone on it lets you use a speaker to talk like a police car, but much clearer. The blue one is a special NOS mixture I made for you. Be careful when you touch it. The final one has a few modes, so can you please drive to Site Gamma to show it off?" He then drove off like a bat out of hell with the speaker on, projecting his creepy, maniacal laughter. Needless to say, I am glad I made janitor bots and sent them out before this, as many people, both student and staff, made a mess of themselves. I quickly chased after him and caught up to him at Site Gamma. That's when I began to explain the last button. Nezu, the red button, has the ability to switch the Nezu battler between its 3 modes. One is normal mode, where it's an average bulletproof car. Press it for mode 2, please. After he pressed it, the car became spiked, got extra plating, and a mini rocket thruster in the back. This is rammer mode. This can be used to protect you or to break down walls, just please avoid load-bearing walls. I moved out of the way as he completely destroyed a couple buildings just driving through them and using the super strength NOS from time to time. That when I explained the button will default swapping between these 2 modes, as I wanted his final mode as a trump card and rarely used. With that said, I told him activate it and watched as he formed his own mecha. Of course, when the face formed, I couldn't help but laugh my ass off. It looked like a 6 feet tall Nezu robot with neon pink cat whiskers. What's so funny, Midoriya? I chuckled. Sorry Nezu, I think Eri may have added pink whiskers to your mech form. Unfortunately, they can't be undone since I bonded the paint to the metals. I formed a mirror, and he laughed some before he tested out the mecha's many uses. Unfortunately, all are destructive, so by the end of the day nothing was left standing in Site Gamma except for Nezu, and I'd say it was a productive week, shrinking down so much tech but unproductive cause Nezu got it all. I woke up to Eri being full on chaotic neutral one morning and shook my head. Yep, she is pulling a Stitch, crawling on the walls with an extra set of replicator arms, in Nico mode, and laughing as she chased a couple replicators coated in cotton to muffle them. After watching her chase it out of the bedroom and down the hall, I counted down until my mom screamed. With a small chuckle, I walked to her room and grabbed Eri. I told you she would imitate Stitch. With a smirk, I brought Eri downstairs, scolded her lightly, and made breakfast after putting some headphones on Eri's head. I had to give her headphones as my mom cussed up a storm while she had to do her end of the bet. The bet was over if Eri would imitate Stitch or not. The loser had to be Nanny for a day, and we had a week for her to imitate him. I won and Mom was furious since she lost, and we watched it last night. When Mom walked in dressed like Nanny from the movies and show, Eri went crazy. I just had to record her bouncing around excited. She did eventually calm down, which was good cause I had to go to Hasu today. After telling her to be good and not cause Mom any trouble, I gave her a Stitch onesie and left. Needless to say, I got plenty of calls, pictures, texts, voicemails, and emails from Mom, our neighbors, and Aunt Mitsuki. I got to the train station and headed off to find the notorious tech thief. After a long few hours ride, I got to Hasu and started my search. I scanned the areas hit, possible future targets, and even checked the multiple black markets there. Of course, I was in disguise with Queen, making it look like my arm was robotic and then I had a cybernetic eye. The people there were really nice when I said I was quirkless and looking for tech to upgrade myself. After buying a good portion of illegal tech, I headed to a tall building and waited. While waiting, I saw a ninja wannabe break into one of the tech stores that had already been hit and steal stuff. They didn't get away, as the second they entered, I put a shell around the entire building. I can't help but always be surprised at how fast replicator blocks can move to form stuff. Once the shell was formed, I watched her bounce off the segment covering where she broke in. You done trying to escape? You are under arrest for stealing multiple laptops, desktops, monitors, tablets, and other forms of computers. I sighed as I warped in with Queen on my shoulder. The girl growled at me before she suddenly created a portal releasing clockwork horrors from DnD Spelljam release. Knockoffs must die, Queen screamed before she summoned an army, destroying the small amount of clockwork horrors in a minute. Note to myself later, find out what all might be a knockoff so I can avoid them. With the thief's army gone, I walked over and glared. Surrender willingly or else I'll have to get physical. That's when I realized something and removed her hood, showing a female version of me. We looked at each other stunned for a while before she said, "So, I'm guessing this is not my Earth." I shook my head. "Not likely. You have a guardian too." She nodded. "She's very nice and gave Eric powers after I saved him." That's when both guardians appeared. We talked and sent her back home with the scraps from her clockwork horror. I apologized for Queen going crazy and promised Queen to get her some saw blades to use. I yawn as I wake up in my bedroom, with Eri hanging from the ceiling again, but asleep this time in her angel onesie. With a chuckle, I got her down and adjusted some programming in it to move her to her bed when she dozed off from now on. "Come on, Eri, time to get up and go to UA. Time for you to terrorize my E." That woke her up instantly and she ran to get a shower. While she cleaned up, I headed downstairs and made us breakfast. Just as I plated breakfast, I heard the shower shut off, saw a pink blur go down the hall, and a loud set of screams. Soon a laughing Eri ran in and sat in her booster seat with a big smile on her face. After a couple minutes, Mom came in with a glare. Whoever the megaphone in her suit. I looked at Queen, who was shaking on what looked like laughter. just for that you lost your saw's queen. She quit laughing and ran over removing the stuff she added, including a record-playing claw that also works as a headphone jack. When I saw that, I ran into my room and saw she dismantled my old-fashioned record player and one of my headphones. You better repair my record player or I will make you into Minta's diaper. As she fixed my stuff, I ate breakfast with my family and we planned a weekend trip where we would go camping. Once my stuff was fixed and the dishes were washed, we created the shark board and headed to school. We got there early because I forgot about daylight saving time. Thankfully, the support class gets keys to a tunnel that lead right to the classroom. Once there, I began working on saws for my replicators and I ignored Eri, which I now regret. She set up so many pranks Ms. Joke would be proud. First target was Power Loader. As the teacher walked in, she dropped on his head and screamed, causing him to freak out, lose balance, and faceplant into a giant whoopie cushion that she got from Ms. Joke. He was mad at first before he calmed down and saw it as funny. Next was May. She got hit with a giant whipped topping pie. Instant laughter from how she looked, and she has a good sense of humor. Unfortunately, after those 2 successful pranks, the rest of the class weren't so happy. Scaring people, moving their tools when they weren't looking, undoing simple construction steps, and such were done as I gave Queen and the leaders of each replicator squad their extra limbs and saw blades. This is when Sit really got crazy and I was almost suspended. I really should have put Eri in a padded room or something. While I started to work on a new device to help take care of burns, cuts, and other skin-deep injuries, Eri and Queen plotted. They quietly cut into the wooden and metal legs of the different desks and waited for the perfect time to strike. Right when I was holding a small generator with a radioactive agent in it, Eri screamed because of someone's invention exploded. This causes everyone to jump up, causing a domino effect. The desks collapsed, destroying some creations completely as they exploded. A screwdriver was launched, jamming Robolig's leg, causing him to fall, launching blades he was going to install into his creation. And then the blades hit me. I dropped the generator, teleported my classmates out, reinforced the room with magic, and slowly dug the blades out of my back. After a little bit, the generator exploded, cleaning out the classroom completely. Eri, Queen, what exactly were you thinking? Both acted innocent until I showed the one cut desk leg that launched into the hall. Queen tried to run, but I forced her to come back and curl up into a ball as I glared at them both. I was just going to prank people, I didn't mean for it to go so bad, Eri said after a little bit, definitely sad and knowing she messed up. There is a time and place for pranks. No more pranks, cause you are now grounded. Eri was confused. How can I be grounded if I'm not an electric toy? The innocent reply nearly got me, but I stood firm. Grounded in this context means you cannot watch Lilo and Stitch, play with any toys related to the show, you lose the onesies, and you're watching educational movies until it's over. She apologized to everyone as I slowly cleaned up the radiation, reversed time in the classroom to before the legs were cut, and took away all the saws, putting them in a special box only I can get in. That's when Nezu called me into his office. After a long talk, we agreed and set it up. From now on, Eri goes to him to learn in the morning unless we have kid stuff we want to test. After lunch, I had Eri change into a simple outfit of jeans and a t-shirt before we went to the hero class, where everyone asked what the explosion was. Needless to say, it was a long day. I woke up early and began to clear out all of the Lilo and Stitch stuff from the house. It took me a couple hours to hide it all since I built her a lot of stuff. With it all in a bag of holding, I hid it up high and out of her reach. I did warn Queen not to let any replicator hay it down for a month or else. After that threat, I made breakfast for everyone and woke up Eri. She wasn't happy about her not having her Lilo and Stitch plate and cup, but after I explained again what grounded meant, she ate breakfast angrily. With breakfast done, I headed to school with Eri and dropped her off at the mini classroom Nezu set up. With her settled in, I headed down into the support lab when I was hit in the face with sneezing powder. It was a prank the class set up for Eri, but I triggered instead. After a bit of me holding it, and I sneezed loudly. The result was 2 portals forming behind me with a blue hedgehog and another me flying through them before they closed. What the F just happened? I was midair and now I'm in a hallway. Before I could reply, the blue-furred hedgehog spoke. I'm unsure, Master, but I think this pussy willow copy may have the answer. Everyone was stunned with the speaking hedgehog as the other me sat up with a growl. Great, did I end up in another effing timeline? Wait, why am I in UA? The entrance exam is happening now. I shook my head. Okay, just call me DnD Izuku. I was hit by sneezing powder and kinda summoned you and your pet here. I don't know if there was time travel involved or not. May I know your quirk so I know what to call you? The hedgehog growled. He is master, so back off, copycat. That's when Queen charged at the hedgehog and they started fighting. Neither I or the other me could split them apart before the hedgehog grew into a spiky Oni and threw Queen through a window. Bluebow, calm down. We are in another reality and we can't afford to make an enemy right now. We don't know if Asmite is powerful here or not. I couldn't help but ask, don't you mean All Might? Don't tell me your reality's All Might is a jerk. He sighed and stood up, popping his back. Yes and no. He is a quirkist, has helped Quirkless kill themselves, and told me to give up being a hero. Everyone was stunned before I waved my hand. Calm down, just because his is a jerk doesn't mean ours is. I will check though later. So what should I call you? He shrugged. I guess system will do. Queen then came flying back in and attacked Bluebell until she fell apart cause I ordered her to. Enough, Queen. They are basically us from another reality. I reassembled her inside as I sent her into the classroom. With her being forced to set up my desk, I lead system up to Nezu, who sighs. Midoriya, what magic did you use? He portaled me in my familiar here. Okay, from another reality, and there I'm an anti-hero and anti-villain. I'm purging villains and fake heroes as I help heroes grow and help the unfortunate. I gasped in shock and look at him scared. I will be honest, I didn't expect that at all. Are you going to terrorize this reality? System shook his head. No, I'm not going to, but I will say this, don't stop me. I've already done a lot, and if I vanish and so does my villain self, it'll ruin everything. I patted his shoulder and said, you're a stressed bloomer, right? I was given powers from a godlike entity. Close but not exactly. I am Lily, his system, and how he got his powers. Since you are technically him, I'll give you a gift. As I hear that disembodied voice, a crystal formed in front of me and then fell into my hand. That is a quirk crystal, just eat it to get a quirk or two. I don't know which she gave you, but they'll help you out. With that, I sent him back to his reality, and I swallowed the crystal, gaining the power to mold and create any material I can imagine. Such a nice gift from a villain. Maybe not all bad guys are evil because they want to be. I'll focus on that later. Right now I have a quirk to test out. It's been a couple weeks since my evil self accidentally got warped here. I've kinda felt down before I thought of something. Guardian, I have a question. The green ball of light appeared. Yes, Izuku. I can become any class and subclass, both legit and homebrew, correct? The ball turned into a question mark. Yes, but why? Are you tired of being an artificer? I chuckled a bit, but I'm going to use a homebrew feat called true multiclassing. It lets me get multiple classes and subclasses at the same time. The ball chuckled as it heard me, going arcane trickster. I shook my head. No, I'm going to add circle of Slugtera druid. The ball dulled a bit and warped as it was confused. I don't know that homebrew. Where did you find it? I stiffened some. I am stealing it from the creator of this timeline and others. He's using it for a campaign and I want to use it for some chaos. Guardian nod the best they can before they vanish as I activate the two homebrew things. True multiclassing lets me learn one additional class or subclass to the maximum. Technically, I'd have to be level 40 to learn it all, but I am level infinity, so. The druid's repulsion of metal hit me hard, making me back away from the metal project I was working on. Damn, that feeling hurt. It felt like metal was draining my energy. I'm gonna have to activate a feat that makes it so metal doesn't cause that. After getting over the feeling, I did so and began my plan. My new class lets me summon slugs from a cartoon called Slugtera. Slugs are literally living ammo that shapeshift when shot from special guns. The DnD subclass changed that up though. The slugs get rolled stats and can get almost any martial class, though some subclasses aren't allowed. This will be a lot of fun and I already have Nezu's permission for it. I do cheat and go above the 13 slug limit you have at level 20, but I make a full-on army of slugs. Healer squad. Light slugs work as clerics to heal after the prank and also heal the others. Monk squad. A mix of slugs with different elements and subclasses, including a couple drunken master and ascendant dragon. Barbarian squad. Mostly totem path with a mix of berserker and beast path. Rogue squad. Assassin, phantom, scout, soul knife, and swashbucklers all in a group and ready to cause chaos. With my 3 inches tall army, I created one special slug based off of Burpee from the show. For the prank, I put him in a small hamster cage with a wheel and food. Luckily, he was all in for the prank. The other slugs got special mini vehicles just for them. I made them robotic wolf, mole, and horse mounts based off the old cartoon. This should be fun as hell. With the gate blasted and melted to rubble, I walked in and grabbed a flare I shot into the air. Instead of a glaring red ball of flame and sparks, a giant pulse of blue energy came out of it. That pulse of energy didn't affect anything and Hound laughed. What was that, a faulty EMP? I smirked and said, that was slug energy and you'll find out what it does soon. As soon as I finished speaking, the ground began to shake and lots of dirt mounds began to be pushed out of the ground. I know you guys didn't say me in what army, but here it is. The mounds erupted as the mole mechas finished digging and burst out of the ground. With the tunnels built, the others came flooding out to cause chaos. They mostly targeted the teachers as they were all pros and scared the students that didn't want to fight. The stuff I saw makes me still laugh to this day. Went to being used as a volleyball between a few barbarians. Katsuki using his explosions on a rogue only to get his rear burned by them or their teammates. The chaos was beautiful as I walked down the halls and knocked out any classmates that tried to stop me. I felt bad about knocking out Uraraka and Mei, but I needed to. No one really could stop me, but Queen had her replicators fight to unarm but not kill the slugs to make it look like I was still there fighting somewhere. It helped I made it so that the slugs also kept people away from the bathroom I'm hiding in. Eventually I got to Nezu's office and growled, "Release my friend now." Nezu was shocked I got there so fast until he looked outside and saw that everyone was dealing with a lot of slugs at the same time in their mechas. He quickly released Burpee from his cage and watched as Burpee somewhat slowly jumped to me. I quickly put him in an odd crystal for 30 seconds before he came out good as new. I got what I wanted. I will leave but send out a warning, never touch my slugs. I tossed 2 folded pieces of paper at Nezu at such an angle only one would be seen on camera. But then I left through the melted window and set off another slug energy flare. This time all the slugs returned to their holes, healed anyone injured, and left no evidence that we're here. Well, the gate, window, and video couldn't be fixed or deleted, but the ground had no evidence of a hole. With their retreat done, I headed out the gate until I was stopped by All Might. I hate to do this, but he had to come help when it's his day off. Stop right there, villain. How dare you attack UA? I groaned inwardly before I glared at him. Nezu had my friend Burpee in a cage. I just came to get him back. Now let me go or get hurt. You can see no one is hurt here cause I healed everyone since only Nezu and Izuku are to blame. When he charged at me, I shot Burpee into the air, causing him to morph and then create a ring of fire, which I used to vanish and appear in the bathroom. Before I'm found, I quickly beat myself up with bruises and cuts before slumping on the floor. When I'm found, I'm instantly taken to Recovery Girl, who heals me, and Nezu walks in after I'm healed. Our curiosity cost us today. That thing you found was a slug and belonged to that person. I think he is a villain, but he healed all he hurt except you and Minta. I nodded and slowly stretched as Recovery Girl left the room to take care of Minta, chuckling that the pervert got roughed up. Nezu smiled. So you're going to use your new class as an antihero, villain, to help defeat true villains and fake heroes. Why, and yes, cameras are off. I smiled as I stood up. No villains attacked the school as I hoped, and it took me an hour to get to your office. I beat up and healed a ton of heroes, but not one villain. I'm going to make Slugtera a villain, and I need a special area for my villain stuff since I can't keep it at home and I can't let my classmates see me making the stuff. Nezu pondered for a bit before he snapped his fingers. Use a homebrew item to do it. I have the notes in my office. Follow me. He ran out the door, hopped into his car, and sped off to his office with me running behind him. Once there, he hugged me and I hugged her back. You okay, Snowball? She nodded. But we lost Burpee. Can you find him again? I patted her head. I'm sorry, but no, sweetie. He belonged to that person, and if I knew he had an owner, I wouldn't have grabbed him. I will make you a plush of him though if you want. She looked up at me for a bit before she agreed to it. Found it. Here's that paper you wanted, and hopefully it helps you with the RC rescuers you've been working on. As he handed me that paper, he also returned the secret paper to me. I nodded and headed off to Hero class, where we all basically just told the teacher what happened. Other than Minta being used as a volleyball the entire time, mine was the most embarrassing. I accidentally caused this by catching a slug with fire abilities. Because of that, I was attacked and beat up pretty bad in the restroom I headed to before getting lunch. Shoto was interested in what I said, a slug with fire powers. Did you see a nice one? I nodded and thought a bit. Honestly, they looked kinda familiar. If only I could place them. I began to draw Burpee, a frost crawler ice slug, and a few random slugs before Yaoyorozu spoke up. Wait, those look like slugs from Slugtera. That makes me perk up some as a few others recognize the name and point out a few I drew from the show, leaving the odd ones with armor, weapons, and odd items on them. These look like they would fit the show, but slugs don't have weapons or energy constructs to fight, Minta said as he held an ice back to his head. I looked at him. You dealt with a group of them, right? What all did you see? He sighed. One had giant energy hands they used to slap me. One had totems that would glow and then it seemed angry. And there was one whose weapon wasn't solid, but I still felt pain where it hit me. It felt like a part of me was burnt, but no physical mark. I pull a pair of glasses from my backpack and look at him and freak out. That's impossible. Your soul is damaged. Those odd blades hurt your soul. I go through the DnD books I own to see what to do to heal a person's soul. After a while of finding nothing, I tried to give him a healing potion and used a healing spell on him. After his soul was healed, I relaxed for a bit. I slumped in my seat for a bit, waiting for someone else to come to the conclusion I was leading them to. A few classmates had also grabbed my books to get an answer when Uraraka looked at a totem barbarian slug and read about its class in the book. Midoriya, I think the odd slugs are part of DnD. This one fits Primal Path Totem Barbarian. I quickly sat up and looked at the drawing and what was written. Acting like I didn't think of it, I checked the drawings and looked at the books to see which classes matched what. Before I could finish my act, Guardian popped up. Izuku, I am sorry. I couldn't stop them. A fellow god gifted a person from a reality with Slugtera being real with the DnD abilities I gave you and warped them here. I've been trying to undo it, but I wasn't fast enough. Oh, I'm guessing you met them already cause of the drawings. I nodded and Guardian vanished with a loud sorry. I'm glad I told him about my prank, but also setting up a villain backstory. He helped out a lot. Aizawa groaned from his sleeping bag on the floor. Go inform Nezu, Midoriya. You and mine to get a couple days off to rest. If I hear you still went to the support class tomorrow and the next day I'll put you under house arrest." I nodded and picked up all my books and drawings before I ran to Nezu. Once there I locked the door and chuckles as Eri was napping. Couldn't be any better timing. They figured out the DnD slugs kinda on their own with some prodding from me not using magic to heal mine until in the classroom. They recognized the ones from the show and Guardian helped out our plan. My alter ego Shane is now going to be marked as an interdimensional villain with DnD magic from a god. So who's our first target to wipe out? We both laughed a bit as I read the note we passed back and forth. The poachers and smugglers You always seem a step ahead Nezu. I'll target them tomorrow and I'll hit the liberation group the day after. I got 2 days off from Aizawa. He nodded and let me go home. I carried Eri home and stitched together a big burpee plush for her. With that done I read the homebrew item. Ring of City, a personal city you can warp in and out of at will. The city has fields for crops, a self-regenerating forest, and an infinite source of water. Livestock, people, and materials can be brought in at will. I smiled reading it and made a slug-friendly version of it. Each building basically got pneumatic tubes that the slugs can use to get around and an underground slug city for them to use as they want. I of course can use a druid's wild shape to join them down there and explore, but I won't do that often. All of my slugs loved the place and moved in as I made a parking building for the mechas. Yes, the mechas are barely bigger than a $15 RC car, but I made 2 million of them. The building has tracks and shelves to move them until they fill up or a slug wants their mecha. It's similar to some parking units in Tokyo, but lot more shelves and vehicles in them. Tomorrow will be interesting as hell. I fed the troops and told them to be quiet as it's nighttime now. I carried Burpee out of the garage and into the house with him running in his wheel. When Eri saw him she ran over. "Dad, what's that? It's so cute. May I pet it?" Burpee growled and sprouted some flames on its head which I quickly put out with some water. "I'm afraid not, Snowball. I'm not sure what it is, but it's definitely not a normal animal. It's hostile, so I recommend you not try to play with or feed him." Queen wasn't in the garage as I set this up, so she poked at the cage. Burpee shot flames out at her, burning the cotton we put on her to reduce the clicking noise. She dropped her leg in the sink, formed a new one and went to get more cotton stuffing, speaking in clicks so only I can understand her. She was not happy about Burpee. "You made it happen by tapping its cage. Leave it alone and it'll not attack." We ate supper with me trying different foods on Burpee. He likes fruits, berries, lettuce, and katsudon. The little troublemaker stole a noodle from my bowl because it was close to his cage. I was stunned, but Mom and Eri laughed as I gave him a mini bowl after a tiny bit. He acted a bit nicer to everyone after that, but I kept him in his cage, so tomorrow the fun will happen. When I got up I warped the slug army to where it was needed for the prank and made breakfast for everyone. Bacon pancakes with syrup, though Burpee just got some bacon and strawberries. After taking a shower and getting Mom and Eri up we ate. I formed the shark board in the garage, and we headed off to school. Burpee was having fun in a special spot I added for his cage. Once we got to the school I headed inside and brought Eri and Burpee up to Nezu. "Hey Nezu, I found something interesting yesterday. I'm not sure what it is, but it can breathe fire." I then put Burpee on his desk and Nezu looked him over. "Is it a robot or flesh and blood? It looks and smells real." I moved Eri over to a corner of the room that had a desk set up and played some cartoons on a TV for her since we are really early. "It's real and his name is Burpee. He is based off the show while the rest are more DnD based. I used the dual class feat to gain a second class and chose a homebrew one." Queen glared until I picked her up. "Tell anyone or act lax when the prank starts. You will be Minta's diaper for a week." She quickly agreed and hid in the bag of holding have for replicators. Nezu gave his evil smirk. "So what's the signal for the prank to start?" I laughed. "Technically it's already started. I've checked and lots of people, even people from the school, posting pics and vids of the slugs on the mole mechas. They haven't figured anything out yet, just wondering what is and why there's suddenly so many. And why they look pissed." I show Nezu the videos, and one shows Death Arms catching one only to be thrown around by the tiny slug before it got back on its mount and dug underground. Ouch, I might have made the totem barbarians a bit too strong. Nezu was rolling on the floor laughing as Death Arms was tossed around like a rag doll. Eri walked over and watched. "It's another Burpee." I looked at Eri. "Who's Burpee?" She pointed to Burpee. "I named him that after he started to burp little flames after supper." I relaxed some and I nodded. "It is like Burpee, but this one is very strong and seems to be dressed. And by the sparks I saw a lightning element instead of fire." I pointed out the belt of totems on the slug before I get alerted to another slug sighting was posted. I watched and nearly fell over laughing at it. Minda was caught trying to slap a girl's rear, but before he could, an astral self-monk slug showed up and beat him up using its astral arms only. Nezu of course gave him detention for trying to grope girls and was laughing as we put him being beat up on loop as the screensaver on all the laptops, computers, and TVs in the school. Once that was done I had Eri go back to her corner to get ready to learn as told Nezu what the attack signal was. I'm thinking during lunch feed him this and duck. He will release a giant fire breath afterwards. If villains try to join in on the assault, the slugs will beat them up for real. Nezu nodded. How many slugs are there? I smirked as I left, closing the door right after my last word. I only made 2 million. With the plan in motion, I headed down to the support classroom and began working on some toys. My classmates looked annoyed until Robolug walked over. I know you've already got straight A's, but why are you making children's toys? RC cars and drones aren't exactly useful. I sighed. They are with DnD magic mixed in. The RC vehicles have special bags of holding with air generators so the people inside can breathe. The vehicles also have the resizing spell mixed in so they can get bigger or smaller as needed to explore collapsing buildings. They backed off and let me continue working. I admit these were a small project I felt like doing as I kept watching videos of the slugs being seen and watching as they get more concentrated around the school. When it was time for lunch, I was really excited for the chaos to start. I headed off to a restroom and quickly shifted into Ellie Shane from the show and teleported to a building near the school with a smirk. After a couple minutes, a giant cone of fire popped out of Nezu's office, destroying the window by melting a giant hole in it. That's when I jumped to the ground and ran to the gate to the school. Release my partner or else. You guys stole him from me. People laughed as they just thought I was an egotistical teen. Hound and Aizawa walked over to the gate and opened a segment of it to look at me. This will be really fun now. We didn't steal anything from you, now leave or we will arrest you for disturbing the peace. I glared at them. That cone of fire was from my partner, now release him or else you will regret it. Someone kidnapped him last night and I want Burpee back now. Hound growled, leave now. Last warning. I warned you too. With that, I pulled out a blaster and jumped back for some distance. After aiming, I shoot an acid totem barbarian slug at the gate. The slug not only melts the gate but also punches both heroes clear of the gate and the acid so they don't get too hurt. Let stage 2 of the prank begin. Small note, I might mention slugs from the show, so I will add pics if I think it's needed. Also, I added a pic of Burpee in the chapter, trying a new class. I got up and slowly headed downstairs to make breakfast for my family. With it done, I woke up Eri and Mom for them to eat breakfast while I showered. After eating, I took Eri to school only for Aizawa to trap me in his scarf. I am just dropping off Eri. Like I would waste a chance to not go to school. He shook his head and let me go drop her off. Tomorrow, drop her off at the gate. I'll take her from you. I nodded as I drop her off with Nezu. After dropping her off, I took a file from Nezu and left to handle the Poacher's slug style. Once I left the school, I read through the file and warped near where I have to be. I watched the Poachers summoned a few special slugs from their city for the fun. With an evil grin, I sent out a group of fighter hoverbug slugs with full-on protection style fighting. The next shot they fired made me bust up laughing. One of the hoverbug slugs then flew into the path and blocked it, sticking out its tongue before diving back into the tall grass. The Poachers were quite stunned as they saw that. One of them said, "What kind of bird was that? I've never seen anything like it, and it had armor." They argued a bit before one used his quirk to shoot lightning at their target. Another hoverbug slug, with the lightning element, stopped it, flipped them off in its own way, and hit again. The results for this was hilarious. Lightning asked, "Is it just me or did that thing flip us the bird?" Their leader nodded. I have to say yes, because it formed a fist of lightning and flipped us off. Lightning was then slapped upside his head by his leader. I was holding my hands over my mouth so my laughter wouldn't be heard. My slugs, on the other hand, were loudly chittering, making the Poachers and their target looked around terrified. I then used Tree Stride to walk out of a tree behind them. "Why are you shooting at my slugs?" The group all stood up as one actually said himself. The leader was the first to get over the shock. "Wait, those weird things are slugs. Well, we are after the cheetah there, but they keep blocking our shots." I groaned. "They protect animals in danger, now give up or else." They all attacked me as they all have the same idea. Bullets, lightning, and ice were all shot at me, only for more slugs to intercept and glare. "You asked for this and my slugs are not on the market for a reason." The earth shook some as I secretly warped out a couple druid slugs to grow plant platforms where I placed ascendant dragon monk slugs. "Taste the lightning." With that, all of them breathed lightning, tasing the giant group all at once, including the lightning quirk dude. While they are tased, I shot out a spider-like slug from the show called an arachnid slug. This slug spun some webbing, and after hitting one guy with it, kept spinning more as it spun around the entire group, tying them up. Once they are tied up, I grabbed them and dragged them through a tree with the Tree Stride ability, with them screaming and trying to get free. I dropped them off near the police station with a disc recording of them hunting illegally along with the file Nezu gave me. The police tried to arrest me only to see me walk into a tree and vanish. I can't wait to see the video of their reactions to me using Tree Stride. With that group of Poachers done, I headed to the second group. These guys hunt snow leopards and I have a fun idea. I'm gonna use some crystallite enchanted to stay in their aeromorph forms. These guys aren't gonna know what happened. Oops, this image does not follow our content guidelines. To continue publishing, please remove it or upload a different image. Oops, this image does not follow our content guidelines. To continue publishing, Please remove it or upload a different image. After warping over to where the poachers are, I watched them look for a snow leopard. They weren't having any luck, so I had to stay hidden for a while. Eventually I got bored and decided to use my wild shape ability as a druid. Warping ahead of their path, I became a snow leopard and cast a few defensive spells so nothing hurts me while I get my crystallids ready for the attack, while I had a couple hoverbugs hold some GoPros at good angles where they won't be seen. As the snow leopard, I chased down a rabbit and caught it when the poachers saw me and shot at me. Deciding to F with them some, I jump high into the air from the gunshot, making the shot miss me and the rabbit, which runs off cause I didn't hurt it. Their outfits made them stick out some, so I pretended to just see them and back away hissing at them. Another shot fired, another miss by me dodging it, and I take off like a rocket. The idiots followed me as planned as I run to the trap I got ready for them. After a couple minutes I climbed up a tree and hiss at them as they run towards the base of the tree. That's when I changed back to normal and flipped them off as the ground gives out below them. As they stand up and look around after the snow settles, they see a circle of floating aeromorph crystallids glaring at them with their drills going. They all fainted in fear, which kinda ruined my fun some. I turned them in with proof and got Eri from the school so I could walk her home. As we rode the shark board, we stopped at a park, and this time there were an army of geese ready to fight us. The jerk goose got reinforcements to help it cause chaos and steal their bell. Eri wasn't happy he was back, but I had an idea. Reforming some replicators into goose forms, I secretly created a clone of myself and had them become my alter ego. The clone waited as our goose-locators fought the geese. After a bit, he shot out a slug energy flare, stunning all the geese. That's when lots of mole mechas popped out of the dirt and the slugs shocked the geese, making all but the main jerk leave. Even when surrounded and shocked repeatedly, that goose stayed and tried to fight. Then Jerk Goose actually got the bell he was after, and once he got it he transformed. Who knew which like quirks existed, and he pissed one off. From goose to man in a business suit, stop shocking me. 5 years as a goose is enough punishment. I had my replicators contain the slugs summoned as Lee Clone walked over. Of course he was mad. Release my slugs now. I did so, but each time one tried to shock the guy, I recaught and moved them further away. That's when Eri saw Burpee on Clone's shoulder and yelled, "Burpee." Burpee was of course happy to see her and actually hopped over for her to pet him a bit before returning to the clone. The once goose dude ran while I was dealing with the slugs. The clone then releases another flare, making the slugs dig back to the portal to the ring city while I recalled my replicators. We glared at each other for a bit before the clone spoke as planned. "What did you give Burpee? He keeps mentioning some odd worm-like thing in a brown sauce." Eri beat me to the reply. "Katsudon, which is a pasta dish Dad likes." The clone got irritated. "You have a daughter already. How irresponsible of you." I snapped back. "I adopted her after her grandfather was killed in front of us. I've been keeping her safe except when I took Burpee on accident. I didn't know you existed and I couldn't place why he looked familiar." Nice to see the other DnD gifted face to face though. The clone scoffed. "Gifted? I fought for my power unlike you. Now I'm gonna leave and get some rest. I took care of 2 poacher groups while you healed from the beating my slugs gave you." He vanished laughing, with Burpee waving goodbye to Eri. She waved back and grabbed her plush of him. "Can you become friends with him? I miss Burpee already." I sighed. "I will try my best, Snowball. No promises beyond that. Actually, I can use a spell to copy Burpee, but I'll need their permission first. I will ask next time I see them." With that, we headed home and I made an apple pie for dessert, and for supper I made meatloaf. While I was cooking, Mom came home with Clone behind her. "Izuku, a friend of yours is here." I looked inside. "Yes, but what do you need?" "Depending on what it is, there will be a cost, just to be fair." As I spoke, Burpee jumped into Eris' head and played with her some. "I kinda need the brand or recipe for the katsudon you fed Burpee. He doesn't like any I've found so far." My mom recognized Burpee after he began playing with Eri. "You're the guy who attacked Yue. Leave now or else." I put my hand on Mom's shoulder. "It's fine, Mom. It's my fault for taking Burpee. The recipe is my mom's, so you gotta ask her. I do want to cast a homebrew version of Clone to make a copy of Burpee to play with Eri." Mom glared. "I'll give you the recipe, but never hurt my son again. Or hurt my granddaughter." The clone chuckled. "If Burpee likes them, I will never hurt them again. He just wasn't happy about the cage." Burpee let me pet him and nodded to the clone since I let him in on the plan. My mom handed him a copy of the recipe in Japanese and English, only for my clone to not understand it. "I'm sorry, but I don't know these languages." I had to hold back my laughter some as I handed him some glasses. "Use these. I put a translation spell on them so you can read the language, and it'll teach you how to read them on your own." The clone nodded and I cloned Burpee, adding 2 stripes of color where a collar would be to separate our pet from the original. Eri was happy and playing with our Burpee as the clone gave us some slug food for him to eat. Once that was done, he vanished and Eri headed to the workshop garage to make Burpee a bed. "Mom, sorry I forgot to tell you, Illy and I are the same person. He's a clone I made for this so people have seen us together. I'm gonna be a vigilante as him. Eri can't know, and I'm telling Nezu you know and about the clone Burpee I made for Eri." Mom shook her head and chuckled. You spoilery. I will not tell anyone, but promise me you'll be safe. I nodded and quickly rushed out to help Eri make Burpee a bed. After finishing a metal bed with cotton and memory foam as the bedding, we had supper. Before anyone asks, yes, I enchanted the bedding to be fireproof. Supper was uneventful until dessert. Eri sneezed, scaring Burpee, causing him to jump into the air and land on her apple pie slice, making a big mess. He chittered an apology as we all laughed at him. Eri cleaned up the mess and gave Burpee some of the slice he destroyed as I got her a new slice. She slept well that night with Burpee in his bed next to hers as she snuggled the plush of him I made her. After a peaceful night's sleep and a good breakfast, I take Eri and her pet Burpee to school. Aizawa nearly freaked out until Nezu drove out and told him to get Eri and her pet inside. I explained what happened to Nezu and he laughed. With that bit done, I headed out to deal with a group of Quirkist elitists. Needless to say, I am very eager to make them into putty, but I can't murder anyone. The group wants to kill weak or quirkless people and let everyone else use their strong quirks. You read that right. They only want strong quirks to exist. What a group of egotistical jerks. Anyways, before I go too far off track, I hate them. I'm also surprised Endeavor isn't a part of them. In mildly disguise, I marched over to their base. Honestly, it's just a town of jerks going over a few 100,000 last time we checked. When I was about a quarter of a mile away, an alarm went off, making everyone head home and prepare for a fight. The only reason I know that is because I already had my slugs infiltrate the town yesterday. They're going to regret trying to fight when my main force is already inside. Once I headed close enough to touch the town's gate, a guy slid over. His quirk and hero name, Slide and Go. Basically, he can slide on any surface as if he's on a surfboard on the ocean. Who are you and what do you want? I smiled. I'm looking for the Metal Liberation Group in Redistro. I have a lesson to teach them. As I say that, the guy growled and motioned me through the gate. After a bit of following him, he yelled, "Get the non-believer." I just waited a bit for nothing to happen. I'm sorry, was something supposed to attack me? The guy yelled it a few more times along with a bunch of curse words. I let him for a bit before I yelled, "Form ranks." The town then filled with chittering as an army of slugs started to leave the buildings and drag the bound people out behind them. The look on the guy's face was priceless, especially when a small group dragged Redistro over as well. He was quickly bound as well, and I used Tree Walker to quickly drag all the villains to multiple police stations to hold them all. It took me a long time to transport all of them. With the group caught, I picked up Eri and apologized for being late. Aizawa nearly gave me another day off, but I stopped him. Honestly, I'd rather not find out what Nezu will make me fight if I got another day off. Also, I blamed B being late since Eri now has a new favorite show. He just shook his head as I took Eri home. Now to see what tomorrow will bring. I walked into hero class, at Power Loader's insistence, to see everyone tired and a bit worried about today's lesson. What did I miss? They all groaned as Katsuki yelled. Thanks to the slug attack, we had to work twice as hard the past 2 days. Be lucky you and Grapist missed it. As that was said, Minda walked in looking beat up. I wouldn't consider myself lucky. I couldn't do anything I usually do cause the slugs would appear and beat me up. I'm afraid to even crack a dirty joke. Kaminari winced as the girls all have evil smirks. I quickly ran to my seat and sat down as chaos happened. Yayarosa tricked him. Minda, what's a ghost's favorite bee? Without thinking, he yells, "Boobies." He is then beat up by some custom slugs I made with a unique class and everything. If simple hits and insults won't break his perverted ways, I'll do the extreme. They are known as Shadow Knights, able to teleport anywhere they are needed. They can attack with any element needed, and for now they're doing a custom element I called Chastium, which is always able to hurt perverts. My guardian jokingly calls it Horny Bard Repellent. It doesn't cause actual pain beyond a punch, but the mental attack is the key. Each punch slowly ruins his perverted desires while making him a proper gentleman in public. I don't care what he does in private, his public image could ruin heroes if he becomes one. Eraserhead walked in and chuckles some as Minda gets tossed some. I guess Lee doesn't like perverts. One slug shook its head and they both vanished, letting Minda hit the floor. I quickly healed him and got him to his seat. Since I did work you guys too hard the past 2 days and Nezu's orders, today's a free day. You can do whatever you want as long as it's legal. Everyone was excited but kept it down as we all planned what to do. Some wanted to play video games, a couple wanted to train their quirks, and the perverted duo wanted to be themselves. Well, they did until they both got juggled for a bit. Then Katsuki gave me an idea. I can't believe Grapist and Knockoff Pikachu both forgot about the slugs. Guys, I have an idea. Why not fuse a game with training? They all looked at me confused. I texted Nezu getting us a big training room as I lead them there. Once there I used replicators to form odd rigs. The rigs are an ancient technology called a VR track. The player's waist is held in a ring that lets them spin and the floor is slippery but reacts to footsteps, letting them move in the VR game. The videos of people freaking out in them is always funny. Back on track now. I put everyone in one and gave them some room with walls between them. Each room got warped by illusions into Pallet Town from Pokemon Let's Go. This made a good amount of my classmates happy as they all chose their respective Pokémon which got built out of replicators. I admit I did cheat and create a fluid metal to help with shape where needed. Jagged Replicator Eevee still looks cool though, especially after the colors got added to it. I had them all start their own adventures with Katsuki flying around with his quirk to get where he wanted. As everyone faintly heard his explosions, they all began to use their quirks the best they can to do stuff. Kyoka used her sound to stun and hurt Pokémon. Momo created fake Pokeballs, Denki shocked Pokémon, and Froppy swam with Pokémon. She didn't want to be a trainer, so I let her swim after I filled part of her segment with water. Those who wanted caught and trained their Replimon. After a couple hours of everyone having fun, they had a tournament as I played with my shiny Eevee and shiny Magikarp Replimon. Unfortunately, the tournament ended in a draw between Momo and Katsuki. They both had electrodes that self-destructed. Everyone had fun and I decided to make something for everyone. The next day during support class, Eri helped me make special VR-like items for my class along with a few giant bags of microbots similar to those in Big Hero 6. Once it was done, Eri helped me present the new toys. I walked in smirking as Eri came in on a wave of microbots. With the class's attention, I passed out the gear and their own bag of bots. This is so you guys can play the Replimon game without me. It isn't able to replicate environments that well, hence the goggles. They played a bit with the bots till Izuku walked in. Before he could say anything, I handed him a set and showed him all the cat Pokémon in the game, which I expanded to include all maps and area quirks, Terra Stylization, Dynamax, Z-moves, Mega Evolutions, and Shinies. I even added a few other things like speckled Pokémon that are a mix of regular and shiny, and fusions. The fusions are based off a generator from the 2020 seconds. Surprisingly, the website was still up. We spent an hour playing before we had to go to the gym to do some exercises and fighting. Luckily, the microbots could actually as sparring partners and help us train. I used mine to learn judo, taijutsu, and a few others. To be honest, I kinda felt like Kanishi. Needless to say that this was a fun week. I sighed as I watched an old as hell cartoon called Thomas the Tank Engine. My mom folded the tapes in the attic and had her reuse them for training until they were brand new, along with the tape player. As we watched the show, I saw all the memes and scary games made based around it. Someone created a horror game that got mimicked a good bit called Choo Choo Charles. I decided since today was the weekend and there wasn't a test Monday to explore the town some. It didn't take me long to run into a villain. The first clue was a bunch of spider, train, hybrid things running through the mall. I easily smashed a couple, causing a ball of energy to leave the corpses and fly somewhere faster than I could react. As I got over my shock, I watched a villain in train-like armor walk over. With each step I heard hissing and clicking as an army of more of those spider things followed them. I got into a fighting stance when the armor vanished, revealing a scarred and adult me. Hello me, I'm guessing you're a hero in this world. I nodded as I summoned a swarm of replicators, with Queen absorbing a lot of extra parts to become huge. I'm glad that she did, as a giant train thing dropped through the mall's glass ceiling behind the older me. The older man smirked. Your quirk can be seen as villainous if they knew the truth about your replicators. Parasitical robots that eat technology to grow stronger. This made me mad. So you have multiple quirks. Let's see what all you have. I scanned him and nearly puked at the flood of information info my mind. His list of quirks made mine look like a child's book against a multi-book dictionary set. Well, it was until mine copied all of his and I got copies of his train creatures. This startled him and his trains when my copies spawned in around me, and some were made of replicator pieces. My side attacked first, destroying all of his minions until only he was left in a circle of my replicators and train things. You win me. Didn't expect you to be able to copy quirks without touching someone. If you summon a return portal for me, I'll just head home. I should have known better, but I didn't. I barely had the portal formed as a shadow train thing came out of nowhere. At first I assumed it was mine until it cut me and suddenly vanished into a ball of light, which adult me grabbed. Thank you for the gift, sucker. With that, he entered the portal, which instantly closed. After standing there for a little bit in stunned silence, I recalled all the train creatures, which I now recognize as Choo Choo Charles. Queen shrank back down and all the replicators went back into storage. Are you okay, King? You seem upset. I chuckled a little bit, but I do kinda hope his world can't handle my powers. Queen shuddered a bit as I said that. I'm glad this world can support it. Without magic, you'd be quirkless. I nodded and bought what I needed before heading home. Choo Choo Charles, Izuku's POV. Once I got through the portal, I looked over all my new abilities, only for most to. I'm not sure how to explain it really. Best way I can think of is them draining of energy and becoming like dead batteries. The few quirks I could still use were useful, but most were worthless. What the hell am I supposed to use a quirk like stretchy eyeballs? If it combined with the one I already had, it would be nice, but for some reason I couldn't fuse them. Charles formed in a smaller form behind me. Is everything okay, Izuku? You seem tense. I nodded. It seems my hunch was right and wrong at the same time. Other realities can have quirks, but their versions can't fuse with ours. Also, something is odd about that world's quirks. Most of them died once coming here, meaning something was unique there. Charles paced a bit by walking up the wall, across the ceiling, and down the other wall for a bit. He stopped on the ceiling and looked at me. Maybe it's a type of energy like mana or a special element in the air. I shrugged. No clue, but I can go to another reality later and look. Let's get you some supper. Major time skip. It's been a while since I went to UA. I graduated at the top of both my classes and got myself a girlfriend. The biggest shock to most people is that I married a civilian. She's no slouch, so even some hardened villains run in fear of her. It doesn't help I enchanted her favorite weapon, a 300-year-old pair of flip-flops made of bamboo. My life has been simple and enjoyable since I graduated. Miley Shane alter ego was revealed to be me, and I started to use both slugs and replicators to fight crime. There's also the monthly familiar games I broadcast, which brings joy to people. Using the slugs and replicators, I recreate the events of the past. Rodeos, the Coliseum, Olympics, marathons, car racing, and even gaming tournaments. Unfortunately, there has been betting, so I just set up a very secure website and on-site area to place bets. I'm not gonna rig the games, so my wife runs them for me so I don't influence the games. Then the best thing to happen to me, I have kids and a grandkid. My first was twins I called Melody and Hibiki, a boy and girl pair who literally sang a bit as they came out of the womb. Their powers actually work with each other in an odd way. Melody uses music to affect the world around her, and depending on the genre, the different effect and elements appear. Hibiki uses the boosted elements and fights with them, as he is kinda an avatar with a unique music and dance-themed fighting style. The pair destroyed the test bots at their entrance exam and are the #1 duo hero team out there. My third kid is quirkless like I was, but I still love him. His name is Arthur, and he's a hero as well. He uses the Knight's Code from Dragonheart as his guiding light and has become the hero King Arthur. He despises it, but it sticks because he has his own knights. The humor doesn't escape him, but he wants to be called Knight Arthur again, but I'm against it. He worked hard for his title and he's keeping it. Before you guys get your undies in a twist, I didn't forget Eri. I can't really call her my daughter anymore since she became my partner in crime. She is a doctor with recovery girl who is still alive because of a misfire of Eris Quirk, making them the same age. If I remember correctly, they're both physically 27 now and raising hell together. A lot of the more gung-ho risk-taking heroes fear them and their pets. Sorry, got sidetracked. She still is my daughter and I love her. We prank each other and the rest of the family often. My mom has a no-prank rule now because of us. Now on to my granddaughter, True League Midoriya. She's Eris' daughter and a bundle of energy. At a couple months old, she was eating baby food and crawling everywhere. Had to put her on a special treadmill just to keep her in a room. Her quirk is still unknown as she's not even one yet, but I can tell when she gets it. Well, I better get back to quirk-proofing the house. My life isn't what I planned, but I love how fate put it together for me. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.